Hey everybody, welcome to the Full Scale Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Dale Luganbill. Thank you for joining me here. I got a few items to talk about here before we jump into this episode. Again, quick reminder to go follow me if you haven't already on all the social media outlets, Full Scale Outdoors. There's a Full Scale Outdoors group. Join that. That's a great place to share your hunting and fishing pictures. If you have any, videos, you have questions, comments about the show, really anything outdoors, guests you might want us to have, subjects you want us to talk about. Honestly, it's open forum, just whatever you want to put on there as long as it's outdoor related. I'd be more than happy to have you on there. That'd be great. Also, it is going to get cold this weekend, which should get the waterfall acting crazy. And I'm pretty pumped up about that because I have Corey Jeffers and a buddy of his are coming up from Jim Shoe Decoys, and we're going to do some goose hunting, hopefully geese and ducks. We'll see how it pans out, and that's going to be a good time. I can't wait for that. And so this will be the following podcast. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So hopefully we're talking success stories. I'm sure some hilarity will ensue. So be looking forward to that. Also, with this early cold snap, I'm pretty sure we're going to have an early ice season this year, and I'm super stoked about it. So, if you've never ice fished, you got to experience it. Come up to Minnesota, give me a call, get a hold of me. Let's get something on the books. I'm going to take you out there nice and safe. You'll be fine. Let's catch some fish. But if you're from there, if you're from Minnesota and you just want to up your ice fishing game, maybe you usually go out to that community hole and you got that 8 o'clock crappie bite window, that kind of thing. Listen, you can catch those fish during the daytime, and I can show you how to do it. I can break down the lake, show you how to read a map, show you what we do in like a tournament setting and how we find these fish during the day, so they can be caught. Takes a little bit of work, but I'm willing to do the work for you, and I would just really enjoy getting to spend some time on the ice and on the water with some of my listeners. I think that'd be great. So get a hold of me, send me a message on social media. You can give me a call, 612-209-5438, or shoot me a text, whatever. There's multiple ways of getting a hold of me, so I'd really like you to do that. That'd be awesome. Okay, on today's episode, we have a couple fellas that have been on before. So returning guests, Jason Cushland and Kevin Wildung. So in the spring, we talked turkeys, and this time we're talking bow hunting, whitetails, and we talk about a lot of stuff too. Kevin is a fellow member of the Minnesota-made Outdoors Tournament Ice Fishing League with me, so we talk about that a little bit. But for the most part, this is a deer hunting episode. If you've been jonesing for one of those, I got you, boo. Wow, don't ever say that again. And then, let's get into it. I'm excited for this. We kind of concoct a little harebrained idea, so hopefully that'll come to fruition and lead into yet another podcast episode. But I won't spoil it. I'll let you get into it. One quick thing. There was a time in there my batteries ran out. We talked a little longer than I thought we were gonna. So it was an abrupt stop, and then we launch her back up once I throw some new batteries in the recorder. So just a heads up. It's fine. You'll be fine. Had a really good time with these boys, just like I did the last time. So let's get into it. This is the Full Scale Outdoors podcast with Jason Cushland and Kevin Wildung.
Oh, here we go, boys.
Go.
Ooh, I love that sound. This is a good one. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Well, we're on the short list.
I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah,
More convenient.
but it's a good timing because last time you're here we talked turkey,
Yep.
Yeah.
and now we're in the fall, which I guess we
Yep.
could talk turkey again. Do you guys fall turkey hunt at all?
I don't really.
Did you get a tag just in case one happens to wander underneath the
I-
stand?
I used to, and I used to kill one every year, and then the last couple of years I just
I buy
haven't
one.
bothered.
I need to go get one actually because it'll
Right.
come by my stand here in the back.
Mm-hmm.
if I see them, but I haven't seen them on camera this year, so I don't know. They're not coming through. Once I start seeing them, then it's like, oh, they're like clockwork when they start coming in. It's like seeing at the same time every day. And I missed 2 turkeys last year.
Oh,
But
Really?
that's Joel's fault.
Sure.
He was in
The other guy.
He was in the stand with me, and he was like, "Shoot that one! Shoot that one!" He was all excited. He doesn't hunt anything but waterfowl. So,
know, right?
but he was like, "I just want to say," he's like, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "Shut, you just," and so he was like rushing me. So just over the back of the one,
Oh.
and it's the line of them coming out of the woods, you know. So I had time to knock another arrow, come to full jar. He's like, I'm like, "Could you just shut the fuck up?" Overcompensated, shot underneath that other one. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god! And then they were like, we gone.
Then the gig was up.
Yeah, they're like, they were just gone. I couldn't knock another one.
We had a pretty fun spring.
Yeah.
We went in South Dakota. We hammered the hell out of them.
That was Yeah, I filled 3 out of 4 tags this year.
You get 4 tags in Nebraska?
No, 1 in Nebraska, 1 in Minnesota, and 2 in South Dakota. And I had every opportunity in the world to fill my tag.
Is it just 1? I thought you could take 2 in Nebraska.
You could
take 3.
Oh,
But
Jesus.
he only bought 1 tag.
It's $100 a pop.
Oh, good Lord.
Right, so it's like, I'll just buy 1 to go play. And
Yeah.
then if I shoot 1, cool. But I'm not going to go and just be like, here's 3 bills and shoot 3 toms. I'm not going to try to do that.
Wow.
That gets expensive.
I mean, I think the most I've killed out there is 2 in 1 spring. And I mean, I probably could have killed a third if I really wanted to, but it's like, at that point, oh well.
Right.
I didn't want to spend the extra $100.
You're into turkeys, but you're not that into turkeys.
Right.
Where it's like we need to kill every one we can.
We're into
punch every
turkeys
tag.
enough to kill multiple
Right.
or hunt multiple states, but
right.
not
That's
enough
true.
to kill everyone we see.
Gotta let some go.
Gotta go to the extreme.
Yeah,
We
no.
killed 6 in South Dakota in 30 hours.
Yeah.
In 30 hours.
Yeah. And we reaped, what, 3?
3 of them were
Reaping.
That is
behind
so
the
cool.
fan.
See, now that I think I could get really excited about
It's
doing
it's
that.
real cool when you
Was
pop
that bow or gun?
gun.
Those were
we're,
gun.
We're going to do it with a bow this
We're
next
gonna
year,
go
though.
with the bow this
It was
year.
so easy.
Well, it was a brand new. It was a piece of ground that I had gotten permission on. The guy had offered me to come and deer hunt it, like 10 years ago, and I hadn't talked to him for like 7 or 8 years, and I just showed up at his door one day to deer hunt. I said, I don't know if you remember me, but you said I could come and hunt after gun season, with my bow, and he's got all kinds of deer out there. Oh yeah, I remember you. Go ahead. There's big deer lives over here, another one over here, and he's all about wanting me to kill a big deer. I mean, he'd rather me shoot something big versus a 2-year-old. He'd rather have his young deer grow up.
Right.
He manages it a little bit. He's got an outfitter to his south. He hates because he lets all his clients shoot all the good 2- and 3-year-olds that are potential 200 inches in 2 years. But he owns 4,600 acres, and he summers 300 to 400 deer all summer. And then in the winter, it could be as many as 1,000.
So does he hunt himself?
Yep.
Oh,
Him and his
okay.
family hunt. They kill between 6 and 8 bucks every gun season, and not one of them is usually under 140 inches.
It's stupid.
Wow.
They killed,
Yep.
what'd they kill? 8 of them last year.
Yep. He had
One
on the
was a
shed.
145, between 145 and 175 inches. And I think that all but one of them was over 150.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
So-
he walks into his little Quonset shed. He's like, "Yeah, these are all the deer we shot," and it's just one after another after another. Oh, there's another one over here. Oh,
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
Oh, yeah.
my
Yep.
goodness.
So, I mean, they shoot big deer.
Well, when you
But they're
have that
only-
much land, you actually can
Yep.
manage your herd.
Right.
Like, it's not.
Well,
like, I have 7 acres.
I mean,
you're managing it.
I mean, for them, it's not really even managing. They're just going out picking the deer they want to shoot, and that's
Sure.
what they're shooting. I mean, that's what he's lived there for 20 plus, 30 plus years, whatever it is, and that's just what they've always had.
Right.
Because he's the only creek bottom that runs. I mean, it runs through his property on across the next few neighbors, but he's got some alfalfa fields, and I think was it a rye field? I don't know. He had another field out there, and then his neighbors right next to him have corn, and the outfitter has a field of corn, but they winter. I mean, otherwise it's all high open prairie. Pasture ground. Nothing. I mean, hardly a tree.
Mhm.
And the deer just live in them creek bottoms, so
for
they
sure.
hold. I mean, of his 4,600 acres of good prime whitetail habitats, probably like 500 acres.
Wow, that's still pretty good, though.
Well,
That's
right.
still a lot of acres.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, all these deer from the whole area in the in the wintertime, when I go out to hunt in December, they are all stacked into this area.
Oh, they're probably
and
all yarded up. Yeah.
The first year I actually hunted it, I seen 700 deer the first day.
700.
700, and that was probably around
That's ridiculous.
450 to
Click, click,
500 whitetails, and another 350 to 400 mule deer.
Oh, this is west.
Yes.
Quite a bit.
And probably 200 to 250 antelope, all on his ground, in his fields.
Holy crap.
And he never had, when I went in and talked to him, he goes, oh yeah, there's 400 head of whitetail up in this field every night, and the next field over, there's a couple hundred head over here.
It's like cows.
He talks about them like cows. He goes, oh yeah, there's 200 head of whitetails over here. But I was out there. We got a blizzard. It was super cold, and there was like 200 whitetails. I have a picture that never left the alfalfa field all day. They just bedded out there, and there was 5 bucks bedded in a circle right in the middle of all the does out there.
That's ridiculous.
And they were between like 135 and 165 inches. All 4.5, 5.5 for older bucks, just all bedded up together.
That's just ridiculous. How much is a South Dakota tag?
$285.
Ooh. Well, they don't just give those away, do
No. Well, it's
Nope.
cheap when you think about it.
I mean,
Montana's 500, Iowa's 500.
Well, yeah, I was ridiculous. They,
Kansas-
like,
the Kansas tag I want to draw next year is
500.
550.
Yeah. It's
So
okay.
I
Wyoming.
might bring my. So this weekend I got Corey Jeffers from Jim Shoe Decoys is coming up. Met him at the game fair, so I'm going to take him goose hunting up here, and then so he's invited me down there in January for a late season honker hunt. But he's like, we also have a ton of deer.
Where is
He
that?
was Ohio,
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
and he was showing me some pictures. I'm like, good God.
There's
He's
some
like, yeah,
studs that
and he
come
was
out
like,
of that
we
state.
passed this one. I'm like, I'm shooting that one. I hope you know, if I see that deer, I'm not passing that one. I'm going to shoot that one. Because I haven't shot a hard-horned buck. So,
Yep. Yeah.
so,
Yep.
you know, I actually got a couple decent ones on my trail camera here.
Right.
I mean, they're not going to make nobody's jaw drop to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like, the reason I haven't shot a hard-horned buck is because I don't want a basket 6 or a basket 8 or, you know, whatever. I might shoot. The one year I was going to shoot this little spindly 3x5 because he was all gnarly. Like the 2 on the one side was like, it split like right as it came out of the antler pretty much. And it was just, one was all tall and like spirally and just, it was gross. And the third side was just like, he had 3, but the whole frame was just skinny and like, there's something wrong with that dude. And I saw him a bunch of times. I saw him with, he was, usually I have a doe and a fawn take up residence in my backyard here. But that year was a little bachelor pad. It was those 3. It was a button buck, that guy who I called Strange Brew because he had, you know, 3.2 beer from Bob and Deb
Walmart.
McKenzie. Yeah, like
Walmart
that
beer.
album up there, Bob and Deb McKenzie.
Yep.
And then Benjamin Buttons, he was the button buck. And then then there was a forkhorn I called Gaylord Forker. So, I mean, you gotta name them, right?
Right.
And so I saw these, all 3 of them on multiple nights. They chum around together. I've never seen any of them solo. It's like
Really?
if there's one, you see all 3. And one day they were just milling about. I had Buttons right below me, literally bedded down underneath my stand, chewing his cud, and the other 2 were just roaming around eating. And I was like, you know what? Old Strange Brew there, he's getting it. Like, he ain't ever going to be anything, you know? It was getting kind of later in the season, too. I was like, I think I'm just going to shoot this guy. But his personality, he was so nervous. I mean, if the other deer stepped too hard, he'd flinch and look. He must have been shot at or something. Or if he was just...
That could be why he was all messed up. He could have been wounded.
Maybe. You know, so finally I had a shot opportunity. I drew back, and he, like, heard the cloth, whatever, just my arm coming back against my jacket, boom, just eyeballs right on me. I'm like, how did he hear that? Holy shit. And the other 2 deer,
Oblivious.
I had one right below me. I looked down, he's still, you know, just chewing his cud. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But this dude, and so I'm like holding. He finally relaxed a little bit, and then like a random branch fell in the woods across the way, and that was just too much for him to take, and he just bolted. Once he bolted, then the other ones were like, "Oh, we're leaving now,"
Right.
and then they didn't even run off. They were just like, Buttons got up beneath me and stretched out. I was like, "Oh, I guess we're moving," and sauntered off, and I let down. I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm not shooting him."
Right. Well, that's almost sometimes they can be super edgy. Like that buck I shot out in Nebraska that with my muzzleloader.
Yeah.
That deer. I was sitting in a cedar tree. I went in, cut a part of the cedar tree out, set it up, took the branches, and kind of made myself like a little freaking blind, and just sat there. And I knew these deer were coming up, and they was going to be either between like 15 and 45 yards when they come into the little draw going up into this cut cornfield. And I had seen like 50 deer out in that field the night before, and I just went around them, give them a wide berth to get out of there, and then come in and just shove it right down their throat that night, and I get in there, and this buck is the first one coming up. He's like 140-inch, real tall tine, 10-pointer, and he comes by, and I spot him coming through the cedars, and he like stops and like looked up at me and like did the head bob thing, and I'm like, geez, how did he pick me? Wasn't even moving, but just something, and he kind of started walking out, and I slowly got my gun up, and I'm like, he's going to be right on top of me. And he ended up coming out at 18 yards. And I knew, as edgy as he was, I was going to have to wait till he was where I wanted to shoot him to cock my hammer.
Wow.
So I got my head down. I was watching him on the scope. I follow him. And when he got where I wanted, I pulled the hammer back, and he locked up and looked right at me. It was too late.
Crazy.
And I pounded him, But yeah, they can be, some of them, you can get away with murder in the stand. You can be moving around, never know you're there. Some of them are just wired different.
Tuned on. Yeah. So that's why I haven't shot one. I'd let them little ones go, and then, it's not like I'm holding out for a 200. I just want a standard, I don't even know what the score would be. Just a standard Minnesota 8. Right? I'd shoot even a 6 if it had a lot of character and they were tall or wide or something.
That was a nice deer, the one he just shot.
Yeah. It was a good one.
Yeah, he's young, but
what I would have shot him.
Yeah, for what it was, for the adventure we went on. Yeah, totally worth it.
Public land Minnesota whitetail.
Right, I couldn't ask for anything more.
That's pretty cool. So,
and your first bow buck.
Minnesota bow buck. In Minnesota
bow buck. That's cool. Well, let's get in the story. So how did it? So Jason contacted you and said, "Hey, you up for an adventure, right?"
Yep.
Which is usually how it goes.
Yep, exactly.
I come up with hairbrained ideas, and I know I have at least one victim I can bring along.
So Joel Austin and I are the same way. He's like, "Hey, what? You want to do something dumb this weekend?" I'm like, probably. What are you thinking?
Yep.
Or I just call him out of the blue, be like, "Hey, so you want to go to Kansas in November?" Sure.
Yeah.
That's about how
swing it. Yeah.
That's about how it goes. Just like when first time we went to Nebraska, I said, "Hey, I found a spot in Nebraska. You want to go down there muzzleloader hunting in December?" And it turned out to be like 25, 30 below temperatures.
Polar vortex, 2013, the coldest winter we had. We went and hunted that.
We sat 7 hours.
Eat, right?
Yep. That's what we thought.
We sat 7 hours in between 25 and 30 below actual temperature.
That's hardcore.
Frigid.
With 20 to 25 mile-an-hour winds. My stand was so cold, I couldn't put my feet on the platform because I could feel the metal through my boots. Wow. So I actually was hanging off. It was so cold, one of the welds on my stand broke while I was in it.
That's not good.
The seat thing, I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden, bang! And I'm like, what was that? And I flipped my seat up, and one of the welds had popped.
Well, that instills confidence.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm like,
fine.
geez. I was wearing a harness. I wasn't really that worried about it, but it's like,
nobody really ever wants to use their harness.
No.
At work or otherwise.
No. I remember walking out
they're
from
great
that
to have,
sit.
but nobody ever wants to actually use that thing.
Yeah.
No.
I remember walking out from that sit. And when I was climbing down, I could not feel my feet.
Yep.
Like from my ankles down, I could not feel. And so I was looking, I had to look and make sure my feet were actually on pegs to go down. And I got down, we got out of there, and I was like, I think the first thing I said to you is, I got frostbite, dude.
Yep.
And
me too. Yeah,
and he's
bad.
like, I think I do too.
That's the only time in my life I've never been able to feel, I had no feeling below my knees. Like it was, and like walking.
And he
around.
was in a ground blind.
Yeah, and I was in a ground blind in the bottom of a draw.
You didn't have a little heater rocking. in
No,
there?
no heater, no.
We're
yeah.
not that smart.
Yeah, no, we're not that smart. No, why would we do that?
I never come onto the heater thing until
No,
about a
You're
year
an
ago.
ice fisherman.
I know, but that was before I really got into it, and so like now I know. Like if it's like going to be sub-zero, I'm bringing a heater with me, especially if I'm in an enclosed area. That's how it's happening.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Well, hindsight's 20/20, and you learn something every time you go
So
out.
did you? Any of
The
you
next day
actually
I
have
killed one.
frostbite, or were you just
No,
like,
I don't think I ended up having frostbite.
Oh, I think I
It was
dodged
just
it.
really cold. I mean, we both got really lucky. I mean, we have good gear, but still.
For anybody listening to this that's in the South and's never experienced cold weather, there's a phenomenon that happens when your body thaws out. There is a different kind of pain.
Oh God, yeah. You said that hotel room. That's miserable.
You're just
Yeah.
like, and you can't put them. If you put them in water, it has to be cold water.
Yep.
Right? Because if you actually have frostbite and your skin is frozen and you put it under hot water,
damage it.
you get, but you can get, what is they actually is a term for it, but the blood as it thaws, if it thaws too quickly, will rush that cold blood back to your heart and it can stop your heart.
Oh Jesus! And you end up burning yourself without knowing you're burning yourself too. There's just like
Right.
you can't feel your hands, so
Right.
you're like, and you want to use hot. It seems like you should use warm water, but
Nope.
use cold water.
I think you're better off just not using
Yeah,
water at all.
I don't use water. I fight the urge, but that when that blood starts to circulate, that pain in your fingers or your feet or whatever's frozen,
Right.
it's just you try to. There's nothing you can do. You try to endure. You're just like, this hurts. So you're shaking your hands out. You're rubbing your feet. You're like, oh my god, this hurts so bad.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, well, then I'm just not going to go out when it's that cold. Well,
Come on up, you Texas boys. See
Right.
what you're missing out. See all the fun you're missing out on.
no, I
much
guess
fun.
there's a lot of people that haven't experienced a 20 below day sitting over a cut cornfield watching 80 to 100 deer pour out into a field or more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Just in general, honestly, I mean, when it's windy, 20 below is not fun.
no.
I won't even lie to you. That's brutal. But if you have a calm 20 below day and it's sunny outside,
Yep.
that's a nice day. I mean,
Right. It's
people
crisp.
listen to this are like, you're insane, dude. But you're actually like, I can even go fishing. It's like your own body heat. You have this little, if you're not moving around a lot, especially if you're like hunting or if
Yep.
you're ice fishing, but you're not like moving around a lot. If you stay still, you get this little air bubble around you. But even a 5 mile an hour
Cuts right through it.
little just takes that right away, and you're
Right.
left with that 20 below zero on
Right.
your skin. It's brutal.
Well, and the thing is it all comes down to the gear. I mean, what you're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a teacher in my in high school that he'd always say, he was one of our outdoor adventures teacher, whatever. He'd always say, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing." And I believe that's true. I mean, there's I've been
Probably
out
is, actually.
Yep.
I've been out in some ridiculously cold, nasty weather and been just fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on being prepared and knowing what you're getting into and having the gear to do it.
Oh,
Yep.
so Kevin, we didn't really introduce anybody, but Kevin Wildong's in Minnesota Made
Yep.
ice fishing tournament with me, and they're a sponsor of the club, and we got a discount on those clam suits. I bought a clam
Yep.
suit and the boots, and
Yeah, I'm ordering a new clam suit this year.
worth every single penny.
Yeah, it's worth
If it was twice as much, it'd be worth every single penny. Those
Yep.
boots are amazing, dude. The
Yeah,
clam boots.
That's what I've heard. I'm still rocking the Baffins.
It's
though.
weird. Well, I think I don't think you can go wrong with
No,
Baffins. I've
they're
heard nothing but good things.
even if
about
my
those.
feet get a little wet, man, are they toasty. I don't get cold. My
Yeah.
feet do not get cold. Even on Maple last year, feet never got cold.
Biggest freeze baby ever.
And
Yeah,
I'm
and I'm a-
usually-
yeah, and I'm a
same-
freeze
same with
baby.
me. Like I
Super
don't
big
have
freeze
great
baby.
circulation. I'm 6'4". I mean, I don't know what your excuse is.
No,
You're little. But,
I'm lean. I'm lean.
But I'm tall and lean, so my feet get cold all the time, but never once wearing those clam
Yeah.
boots. I mean,
Spend the money.
but the sole of you feel like Eddie Munster a little bit, or Old Man Munster, whatever, with the big giant shoes,
Yep.
because the sole on it's so thick. But that's why you don't get cold.
Right.
There's a bunch of rubber with
Yep.
good tread. That's doesn't slip
Transfer.
very easy on the ice, and then you got whatever insulation they got in there. So it's you're probably dealing with 4, if not 5 inches of material before it gets to your nice sock. So oversize your boots. For anybody
Yep.
listening to this,
Yeah,
don't if you wear a size 10.5 tennis shoe, get at least an 11.5.
Oh,
At least.
always go, but the big
if not 12. Get it so where your foot's not gonna, you can't feel your heel coming up, and then maybe just a skosh smaller because that's gonna stretch the more you wear it. So
right. Well, and that's a big thing that people go wrong is they are wearing regular sized shoes or footwear, and they're wearing super thick socks. You're probably actually, if you're wearing regular size to your footwear, wearing just a thin sock, because when you eliminate you eliminate that airspace in there, that's what actually keeps the warmth.
Right. Yep. No, because I learned that the hard way. I spent a ton of money. I got these like Cabela's pack boots. They're huge. I mean, they look great, but they were just too tight, and my feet would get cold in them all the time. So I spent however much it was a lot. I spent a lot of money on them, and it was like they're worthless. Right. They're absolutely worthless. I'm like, my feet are still getting cold, and then it wasn't later I found out you're supposed to at least a full size bigger. Mm-hmm. So
the other thing is
the clam boots, and man, they're like wearing Crocs. I mean, they're so comfortable, and they're fairly loose, but my feet don't get cold, so whatever.
Right. I think having the socks you intend on wearing when you try them on.
Yep.
That makes a big deal.
But I don't wear thick socks in them either. I mean, the liner in them is super thick, so you really shouldn't need a thick sock.
Right.
Something that's breathable, something that wicks away the moisture. Don't do cotton.
Like a good merino wool liner
sock. Good merino wool. But even like the Clam socks, Clam makes a liner. It's a real thin liner. Basically like a dress sock. Honestly, you would probably get by cheaper.
Yep.
Go to Walmart, buy a 6-pack of dress socks. They're polyester. That's what breathable. They're gonna breathe.
Right.
I mean, if you need to get by,
the only nice thing about going with some merino wools is if your foot does start to sweat, it pulls the moisture away.
Yeah, and wool retains heat even wet.
Yep.
So
that was my crutch.
Even if you were to put your foot into a hole or something, or you broke through the ice and got legit water in there, if you're wearing wool, that'll save your hide. Whereas polyester will not.
No. Right. I even wear merino wool, the liner socks, like you're saying, the super thin like dress socks, when it's 90 or 100 degrees out when I'm out west.
Yeah.
And they keep your feet, when you start to sweat, it pulls the moisture away. It helps with not getting blisters. I mean, stuff like that. When you're walking 6, 8, 10 miles sometimes on a western hunt, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it keeps your feet comfortable.
I know guys that'll wear even for that same, even if they're hunting in hot weather, they'll go with the 200-gram actual like insulated boot because of the wicking. The wicking factor in it
makes a lot of sense.
Whereas like just straight leather doesn't do any wicking, doesn't help you keep your feet dry. Because then you start, if your feet get wet and they get soggy, now you start getting blisters.
Right. Well, I've actually started looking for the next time I go out west early season. I'm probably just going to wear like a cheap, like mesh sided hiking boot.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care. I don't need a leather boot. I don't want a heavy, tall boot. I want something light and cool.
Yeah, if you're not dealing with rocks, jagged rocks to protect your ankles or to protect the side of your foot.
Exactly.
You don't need that heavy leather. But, I know a lot of mountain guys that's they swear by. You want the high, you want the ankle support because you can twist an ankle. Plus,
absolutely.
Just, there'll be a rock digging into the side of your foot. You need that extra added protection. But, yeah, if you're in the prairies, what the hell you need that for?
Yep. And the big thing I've been reading about is guys because I've been looking into doing some hunting in the mountains and stuff, is gaiters.
Yep.
Are a big thing.
Sure.
Because it helps keep your boots and your feet dry. And a lot of guys will wear boots and they'll be like, these boots are supposed to be waterproof, but I'm always getting wet. Well, it's actually water from like dew or rain traveling up your pant leg, saturating your sock, and then it leaching down into your boot. And that's where the gaiters keep all that dry, and it'll keep that moisture from getting into your boot.
Rattlesnakes, dude.
Right. They're a real thing.
I've been out there enough. I don't worry about it anymore.
I like snakes. I'm one of them freaks. So it's like if I see a rat, I'm like, ooh, where is it?
Let's play with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck with it.
I want to know where it is so I don't step on it, but I have been within 6 inches of stepping on one before.
I could have got tagged in the mountains when I was in Arizona, right in the forearm, because I was just doing a little rock climbing. I was up on top of the Huachuca Mountains. Not even at the top. I was just like, mid, just screwing around, little rock outcropping stuff. No major like rock climbing. You need ropes or anything. I'm like, there's this little 15-foot thing. I think I'm going to climb up that. I mean, yeah, I could have gone around, but it's like I actually just wanted to. I was just fucking around. I was having fun.
Yep.
Right.
So I'm about halfway up it, and I reach up to put my hand on this little ledge, and it's like, whoa, pull my hand back down. Heart's going a million miles an hour. I'm like, oh, now I got to go find it.
Where are you?
So I skimmy around, and I look, and so where he was at, I was going to put my hand up on the ledge, and then there was like a little secondary, just a little kind of cave in there. I mean, I could have used that one too, but it just seemed like the thin piece of rock that was forming like the roof of his little hidey hole was like a step going up. So it was perfect for my hand. I kind of put a thumb underneath it and hand, my fingers on top of it and kind of grab it. So it was a really good handhold, which is why I used that other than the bottom part of his little cubby hole. So actually, now that I think about it, I don't even know how he got in there. Like, because it was pretty vertical where he was at. But whatever. Never thought of that till just now. Retold the story a million times. But so I get up there, and it's a little tiny timber in there. And he's all curled up, and at this point, he'd already calmed down. He wasn't really rattling until he saw me again. Then it wasn't even full on rattle. It was just like, hey, bud, I'm right here.
He's like, just leave me alone.
And that was the thing. Like, but it's like, I'm glad he felt comfortable, and maybe he was still kind of cool, so he wasn't, switched on. But my whole forearm and all those veins and everything were right, and he was only 6 inches from where my arm was. So that would have been, if he'd have been hot or he'd have been switched on and saw that thing, he could have easily just reacted,
Right.
Instinct bite right there. I mean, I'd have been in a world of hurt.
Wow.
I'm up there halfway up this mountain by myself. Like, so of course I had to go get a stick to get a better look at him.
Right.
And then he completely stopped rattling and just wanted to get further into his little crack there. He just wanted to be left alone. It was kind of at that point, I'm like, all right, dude, I just wanted to look at you.
Right.
They're cool looking, man. Especially when they're little like that. Their colors are just vibrant. It was gorgeous, gorgeous snake. But anyways, back to the story.
So start with a phone call.
So
Start with a phone call.
We made it all the way to Arizona. That's a
Right.
pretty good rabbit hole even for me.
Well, anyway, so I actually been doing a lot of public land hunting over the last couple of years. And most of the spots, I didn't have time. I like to go out and do a lot of winter scouting and stuff if I can. I didn't have time to do much of it to actually look for
Didn't bring an opener again.
buck bedding.
Keep going. Don't mind me. I'm just pounding. I usually sit there. Why isn't this working?
I believe in you.
It's not working. Beer open. Hey.
Finally.
Fourth try.
I've kind of gotten on the kick the last couple of years of hunting some public land and actually hunting buck bedding and trying to target specific buck bedding areas, hunting in swamps, marshes, stuff like that, islands. This winter I didn't get the chance to do much scouting like I wanted to, but I've been doing a lot of digital scouting on X, Google Earth, stuff like that, looking for isolated little spots way out of the way nobody else wants to go to, or overlooked spots even close to parking lots or roads sometimes. And I've kind of gotten a lot of information from like the Hunting Beast forum, Dan Infault, stuff like that, the Hunting Public. And I've been following a lot of the stuff that Dan Infault has done and talks about and teaches.
Are those websites or those Facebook pages?
Dan Infault is he has a Hunting Beast forum, but he's also on Facebook, stuff like that. And then the Hunting Public is like a YouTube-based hunting group. They basically specialize in most of what they do, if not all, is public land. They do a very, very little private ground, but they're kind of the same way, focusing on specific buck bedding areas, getting close to these areas, hunting mobile. And that's what Dan Infault does. But anyways, it's kind of one of those things that it kind of piqued my interest. Doing the same things for years and years, not having quite the results I wanted. I got sick of it, and I wanted to try something different. And I'll be honest with you, it's really changed the way I've been hunting, changed the way I look at running trail cameras, changed the way I look at hunting multiple areas multiple times. I mean, I don't think last year I hunted the same stand twice all year. This year I haven't hunted the same stand twice all year. And I have no intention of hunting the same stand twice this year. I mean,
Are you setting up a stand each time when you go in?
Yeah, going in with stand on my back, hanging and hunting. The public land this year, because I didn't get to do much scouting, basically using my knowledge that I have of finding past buck beds, what I've learned with how deer use certain terrain features, where they like to bed, isolated islands, lone trees out in the swamp and the cattails, stuff like that, and basically looking at a map, dissecting it. These are the areas I want to hit and check, and basically going in and doing some low impact scouting till we find sign I want to hang on, and I hang it and hunt it. I've had encounters, and that's basically why I called him. I said, hey, I found a spot on some public. It's an island. We got to portage a boat like 400 yards just to get to the water.
Yep.
Paddle across the pond, and then go like another 150 to 200 yards through cattails. No.
Oh, I was gonna say because all our islands in Minnesota right now are underwater.
Right. No, this is this is like sea of cattails with an island out in the middle of it that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. We're going through floating bog. We were walking through that had no bottom.
Yep.
We went down up to the chest waders, not touching bottom, not even close.
You punched through the bog?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'll make you pee a little bit.
It was a hot mess getting out.
And the thing is that's what I'm looking for. I want the stuff that's extremely hard access. Nobody wants to go out there.
I got a spot for you, actually.
Game on.
No, seriously. After we get done talking here, I'm going to show you a spot, and you're going to get a huge boner.
All right.
I've been wanting to go back in there, too. So we might have to make a
party.
Let's make a trip.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. There's spots I went in knowing, well, I'm going to be wet, so I'm not wearing my rubber boots because I don't feel like carrying.
You'll need waders to get to the
Well, I don't feel like carrying an aquarium, so I went in with 7-inch hiking boots, and I went in and got wet up to my waist, and I knew I was going to be wet. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'd rather have my 7-inch hiking boots and be wet up to the waist than carrying around rubber boots full of water and be wet up to my waist.
That's what waders are for.
Yep.
Well, I'm not smart enough to have bought any yet. I was smart enough to borrow a pair. But anyways, so that's what it was. It was a big trek into some public ground. I called Kevin. I said, hey, man, I got a spot, but we're going to need a boat. I said, would you want to go out there and check it out with me? I said, it looks like a spot nobody goes to probably. It's extremely hard access, almost impossible without a boat. Well, it's impossible without a boat from the public side.
Even the private side.
Almost impossible from the private side unless guys are willing to walk through probably knee-away steep water.
Yep.
So, I mean, we got out to that island, and there was zero sign of. I think we found one old glass, like 7-Up bottle.
So you went out there during the day.
Yeah.
To scout it.
Well, we went out there with the intent where we got
hunting that evening.
Hunting that evening.
Okay.
And I don't.
Gotcha.
I try if I can go in and do some light scouting, like on the edge, like the transition of where the cattails meet the main ground or the high ground, and I can find some sign and go, okay, I think there's an island out there. I think there's deer out there. I will go back another day and try and hunt that island. But if I'm going to make the effort to get out to that island, I'm going in with stand on my back, and I'm hunting that night. Unless I get out there and it's completely dead and there is zero sign. Mm-hmm. But I told him, I said, we're going to go in. We were originally going to try going in the dark, and I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah,
because it would have been a freaking nightmare.
It would have been a mess.
But I said, you know what? Let's go in during the daylight, and just so we can see. We'll get out there. We'll bring the stands, and we'll do some low-impact scouting. We'll scout the south end. We'll come back up to the north end if there's no sign down there. Well, from the map, it kind of looked like there could be oak trees on. There was oak trees on the north side, and there could be oak trees on the south side. We'll come to find out it was all popples on the south end. Mm. Sign wasn't as good.
No.
So we went back up to the north side, and there was I think every tree in there was a red or a white oak, and they're all dropping acorns.
Yep.
I mean, there was acorns like in your front yard everywhere. I mean,
like
it was
this
insane.
Tree behind my house is retarded right now.
Right.
It's like walking on marbles.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's
And when I let the
thick.
dogs out, I have to put, I can't get away with socks because it's like
Nope.
walking on Legos.
Right.
Yep.
And it was crazy because when we got out there, well, so anyways, asked Kevin. He goes, "Yeah, I'm game. Let's do it." So we planned out a date, picked out Sunday because we're gonna have some wind cover to use it to our advantage to get in and not have to worry about being insanely quiet. Because I mean, where we were trying to access the island, we were going to be accessing within 150 yards of where I thought there'd be deer bedded. So we had to get in somewhat quiet, and with that, 15, 18 mile an hour wind,
Yeah, it was gusting good.
it worked perfect. We could get in there and get in quiet. But when he said, yeah, I told him where we were going to go, whatever. We got out there, and we used my deer cart,
Yep.
put the boat on the deer cart, and rolled it the couple, 300-400 yards till we hit water. Then we had to drag it another 150 yards probably
Yeah,
through floating bog and cattails to
Yep.
get it out to the water. Paddle probably 250, 300 yards.
Yep.
Hit the floating bog on the other side, get the boat up on it so it didn't blow away on us, and then walk our way up to the island.
With all of our gear.
With
That's
all
a
our
lot.
gear.
That's a
Stands
lot of
about-
stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of
It
stuff.
was a lot of stuff. And I mean, there's not a lot of, I guarantee there's very few, if any, people that do it. We got out to the island, and instantly, the very first tree we walked up to once we hit the island was a little oak tree about 4 inches around, wore in bed right there under that tree.
Yep.
And you could just see trails. And it's not like a faint little trail.
Mhm.
They're like wore in cattle trails is what it looks like. I mean, they're actually dug into the side hill of the hill. So I'm like, this looks really good. So we ended up going and scouting the south side of it. And there's a lot of rubs on these little popples going towards the south side. And they're not, we didn't find any fresh ones on that, but
No.
there was stuff from like last year, the year before, and maybe 2 years, 3 years ago, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some annual rubs. You could see that it had been being used year after year. And the thing that really kind of made me kind of interested in the spot even more about it is they weren't little tiny spindly rubs way down close to the ground. They were on some substantial trees, 8-10 inches, some of them.
Yeah.
And I've seen some pretty good sized trees, and they were rubbed up waist to chest high. So I mean, that's a sign of a
Decent-sized
mature deer.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there was a lot of them. So it's like, okay, so we got an area. There are deer getting to maturity here. They're probably not getting a ton of pressure. The fact that there wasn't a ton of fresh sign there now could be, A, there hasn't been any pressure around that push them back in there yet. And B, the water is so high they may not be coming out there yet. They may be sticking closer to the main ground. But we did find a couple of small, fresh rubs, and we ended up scouting that south side, went back up to the north. Very soon into walking through the edge of the oaks where there's like a little CRP field on it and some oak trees meet, we found some fresh tracks.
Right.
And I mean, it had poured the night before. We'd gotten rain like at midnight the night before. So these tracks were fresh, like from from sometime between the rain stopping and when we were in there at 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Because I think we started our trek at like 12 o'clock in. We got to the island at probably 1.
Yep.
So there's fresh tracks in there. So I said, there's been deer in here. And there's a couple of decent-sized tracks, but they were washed out. So there's been some bucks out there, I would guess. And the thing that really had me excited about the trails that we were seeing was that they were beat into the grass field that was on the island. They weren't like through the trees where there's no grass growing, you could see them, and then nothing. I mean, they were beat down the whole way. So there's obviously been deer in there keeping them opened all summer. Otherwise, those would have been grown up by new grass growth and stuff if the deer are only using it at a certain time of year. But anyways, we scouted down, had perfect wind in our face, started finding some tracks, and Kevin and I kind of decided that he needed to sit here, and I was going to go sit off of the other side, right on the edge of the island. But he's kind of on a spot right before we hit the cap of the ridge, because it's kind of a high spot, but it's a little higher on the one side. On the west side, it kind of sloped up and then dropped off steep into the marsh again. And we picked a tree where he could see down in and see back up towards the north to the very tip of the island. And we got him up in the tree, and as we were getting him up, I noticed there's a couple of single trees out in the swamp. And I even said, see those trees out there, those single trees out there? There could be deer bedded right under them, because out in the swamp, if you have a tree, anything 3-4 inches, there's a dry spot there, because it wouldn't
ground there.
It wouldn't support a tree.
Sure.
Well, those deer could bed on a 3-foot around dry spot out there, just a small little spot enough for them to lay down on. If it's dry, they can bed on that. And if they can bed with the wind coming over their back and looking back up towards the island, that's what they'll do, or watching their back trail. And so we got him set up, and I ended up sliding back off to the other side of the island, and I found a couple of trails, and I actually found 2 small rubs over there that were fresh. And there's 2 heavy trails coming out of this long finger of trees that goes out to, and at the very tip, there's a bigger tree and a big dead trunk. And I had a feeling that there'd be a good possibility there's a bed at the very tip of this, and I might have deer come back up into the island. Well, I had no sooner got my stand hung and got my bow up, and I heard a deer cough. And with the wind, it had to be within 50 yards. And I think I even forgot to tell you that.
No, you texted it to me.
Later on in the evening,
Right.
I could swear I could hear like 2 smaller bucks just kind of play sparring around.
Right.
But I never did have anything come out of there. But it is possible, if there hasn't been pressure on the private ground, they could have been bedded in that tip and taken that back up to the west, to the main ground, because there's a bunch of oak trees on the main ground, and I think there's some agricultural fields up there. So, I mean, it's very possible those deer could have got up and walked out the other direction, because there hasn't been any pressure up there yet. Which is possible. There could be only gun pressure right around there. I mean, who knows what people are hunting. We aren't out there enough to check. But this is the first time into this spot. I've never set foot on it. So I'm feeling really good about this spot. And we're sitting there, and, I mean, the whole night I just felt like any second they could just start pouring in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it just felt right. The temperature was cool. The wind, I dropped the milkweed, and my wind is sucking perfect back down the edge of the island, out over the water. I'm like, this is mint. I mean, it couldn't be any better. And I was sitting there, and, well, I guess that at this point, I'll let you take it over, because you had the encounter with the deer.
Well, so you sorry, I'm just going to recap. So you scouted, satellite, or you e-scouted this spot.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that's when you called Kevin, and you were like, hey, you want to do something dumb?
Right.
Okay, so then that brought us to going in there,
Right.
getting set up.
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
when he first sent me the picture of it, it's like, I've been in there before, but I've been in there for ducks.
Okay.
So I have a lot of knowledge of a lot of these public areas, because I do a lot of public land scouting for ducks and geese. That's usually why I go into an area with water.
And this spot that I'm talking about, that's why I go back there.
Yep.
Is for ducks. And so there's a couple
Yep.
people I know that Joel knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Mike knows about it. But that's it.
Yep.
And neither one of them have any interest in going back there ever again, because it is a monumental pain in the dick.
Yep.
Yep.
It's 2 miles back to the little slough that I like to hunt. And
Yep.
there's no guarantee there's going to be ducks
Anything.
there.
Right.
The one year I actually did scout it, took the time, the Friday before the second opener, to walk all the way in there to scout it, and there was plenty of birds, huntable numbers of birds. It just so happened that night it got down to like 33, 34, not quite freezing, but it was enough.
Pulled them out of
It
there.
was enough
Yep.
that they're like, we're going to make a small move. And we went in there, and
Nothing.
we shot a goose without any goose decoys, and we called it in. I mean,
Yep.
it was just,
Really?
we just called it. Broke off from and it was honking, it was looking. I mean,
Yep.
it was like, I can hear geese, but I don't see any. And he just kept circling, and finally he's like, apparently I got to come down and get a closer look, because I know there's a goose down there somewhere. And that's where he fucked up.
So when he sent me the picture of where he wanted to go, I said, "Yep, I know how to get into that. And I
You
know
guys-
it's so
you guys are gonna
doable.
love this spot so much. I can't wait to show it to
It's
you.
so doable. And I'm like, okay, I got the gear to do it. I get you an extra set of waders. I know a guy. I get the boat. I said, we'll do this. So, but anyways, after we got all the scouting, we hung our sets and we're sitting in there.
And we got in really. I feel like
Yeah,
we got
we
in
got
set
clean.
super quiet. Now, I'll let you tell it, but
Yeah.
I think we hung that set within 50 yards of that
Yeah,
buck being
easily.
bedded.
He had to.
Really?
Yep.
Between 40 and 50 yards,
Yep.
that deer was bedded to him
I mean, that's pretty
when we hung
impressive to sneak in there with a boat and all that shit
Yep.
to be that quiet.
Well, and another, like the biggest thing, as the night was going on, I'm sitting there thinking, because of the terrain of that island that we were on, my concern was, did I get up and get busted before the game even started? Because these
Right.
deer, with the wind blowing in the direction where we thought the deer were sitting, if you're climbing up, even if you're quiet, it's very well possible that a deer could see you climbing up a tree above their sight line, and they can pick you out, and they already know that the gig is up, and they're already going to split away.
Well, that's why I like to try and do some prior scouting.
Right, so
But
then you can
a
see.
spot like that would be terribly difficult without ice.
So, anyways, we're sitting there all night long, and just like Jason mentioned, it was pins and needles because it's like, this has got to be productive. There's got to be deer. At some point in time, they got to be coming in here. There's too much food. There's too good of cover. You have all the things that make a spot very deer-friendly.
Right.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm just waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden I look up and I see a deer head like 20 yards in front of me. I'm like, what in the world? And sure enough, it's this buck that had come literally out of nowhere, and he's literally 20 yards in front of me munching on acorns. Just right there.
Wow.
And usually it's nice if you can see them coming, or if you have some sort of a prelude, like you have a little time to anticipate where they're coming and going. You like it?
We're going to have to go
Okay.
check that out.
We're going on an adventure?
Like all oaks, dude.
Hey, Kevin,
yeah, what?
you want to go on an adventure?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'll bring the waiters.
That's how it goes.
I just pulled it up, put a pin on it, slid it over
Perfect.
to Jason, and I just watched the smile grow on his face. Yeah, dude. I'm not the world's biggest deer hunter, but every time I go in there for ducks, I'm like, God, I need to come back here for deer, dude.
Yep.
Well,
There's actually a
Dale,
smaller.
you want to go on an adventure?
Yes, I do actually.
Yeah.
Because I want to use your knowledge. I'm not the world's biggest deer hunter, so like when you kind of were bringing us up to speed in this story and the things that you were looking for in your light scouting, that's shit I never would have thought of. And the way you even dissected the different kinds of rubs, like the height of the rub and
Right. And I don't claim
I just don't
to
have
be,
that experience. I mean, I
Right.
just don't.
I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable hunter, but when someone is talking about stuff, I pay attention. Because even if somebody says something that doesn't necessarily make sense to me, I try to think about how are they actually interpreting the sign? What are they actually seeing? And like when I started listening to that Dan Info, and I bring him up a lot,
That's fine.
but that guy, when he talks about how he hunts and where bucks like to bed based on wind direction or based on location doe bedding during the rut, stuff like that, it's like light switches just started popping in my head like, I've seen that. That makes sense where that buck came from. That makes sense where this buck came
Where
from.
is he out of?
He's in southeastern Wisconsin. So,
So not close.
no.
I'm gonna have to travel to get him on the podcast.
Well,
It'd be worth
he does.
it.
He does a lot of podcasts,
Does he?
and he would do it over the phone. I'm sure.
I'm not set
But-
up for that yet, but I'm gonna have to
but
break down and do it. I think.
He is a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of the things that I have learned and that I've taken away from and went and applied in my hunting, I've learned from him and from what he talks about. He has stuff on YouTube, videos on YouTube, and they're pretty raw video. It's not pristine cinematic video, but it tells you the story. It tells you what's going on, and it's to the point.
Gets the
And
job done.
exactly. And you know what? To me, I'm not a huge gotta watch hunting. The best thing I ever did is quit watching the Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's Channel because that's fantasy.
Listen, no, but not very many people do. Dude, their viewership is.
Well,
Right.
here's the thing. Like,
YouTube is a big part of that. But
Dan Infolt says there's two types of hunters. The hunter that goes to an outfitter buys his own land or leases ground and pays to shoot big deer, or there's the guys that put in the hard work and the effort to make up that gap that they aren't paying for.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me, if you want to go with a hunt with an outfitter, fantastic. I have nothing against that. We lease some ground, but it's very inexpensive lease in the realm of what leases cost.
Sure,
and
it's not easily accessible. It's
right.
in Nebraska, right?
Right.
So it's like it's still like,
and it's not all food plotted. It's working cattle pasture. We're basically paying a trespass fee to hunt the ground, and we hunt it very similar to the way I would hunt some public land out there. We have some pre-hung sets, but any second I could go and call an audible and move us and go hunt 400 yards over here where I just seen a buck. But however you want to do it is fine. I'm all for people hunting any way they want to do it. But I have, over the last number of years, and hunting out in South Dakota, I've killed bucks on public land out there. Killed bucks on public land in North Dakota. And just, there's something about hunting on an even playing field, ground everybody has access to. There could be 100 guys could go and do the exact same thing you and I just did this weekend, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
sitting at home.
So that's the part I really enjoy.
This spot that I just showed you, the only other sign of human activity I've seen out there was left by me. a shotgun shell, a spent shell that I missed picking up, you know, and it's like, oh, well, missed one last year. There's a shotgun shell. I was like, yep, that's what I shoot. Yep. I think I found some that were like, sun faded, super rusty, like maybe 10 years ago. Because the way you get in there is an old trail. And it used to be a trail at one time. You can tell it used to be like a legit road back into the spot. But it is so overgrown now. Like even since I've started hunting it, which is probably... Oh, my God. I think the first time I went back there was probably 20 fucking years ago. And so since I started going to it, it just keeps continuing to grow over and grow over. In fact, the beavers went in there. When we went in there, they created a new pond that's not even on that satellite picture that I showed you because they dammed up. The whole thing is a giant flowage. Well, I mean giant. It's 2 miles as the crow flies to the pond that we like to duck hunt. And then there's probably at least another 2 miles to the river. And basically that whole 4 to 5 mile stretch is one big river that flows. But it's, there's islands, there's big oak islands out there, and then there's just bog in between. And it's flowing. It doesn't flow fast, but it flows. There's a couple, where the beavers have the dam now. You can see the water flowing, so then you that's when you're like, oh shit, this stuff's flowing, but it's not super fast, obviously, or stuff wouldn't take root and actually grow. But that's a giant river. It's just a giant shallow river. The good part about it is that it's fairly easy walking even when you're thigh to waist deep in water because the ground's hard underneath. It's all gravel and rock, and you can't just run through there. Like sometimes there's decent sized rocks, so you gotta you still gotta feel your way through, or you're gonna slip and feel your waders. But it's high ground, water to get to where we want to go duck hunting. But the spot I showed you, it's a little closer. Now, further west of that spot is a very popular bear hunting and deer hunting spot. You're going to go past, there's a little makeshift parking spot that will be lined with trucks and campers. I continue down the goat trail with brush scraping the side of my pickup truck. I will not use the Denali. I will use the old Chev to get back there. And then I go all the way till I cannot go anymore. So I literally cannot go anymore with the full-size pickup. And then it's time to strap the waders on and get busy. But the chewing acorns. Chewing acorns.
It's going to take
20
us
yards
hours
from
to
your
get through
stand.
this
Wow.
story.
Yeah, 20 yards, chewing acorns. He's got me handcuffed. He does.
Kinky.
Right, yeah. But I'm pretty handcuffed because he's right there and he's alert. Very alert. Wind blows, trees snap, he's looking. And so I'm like, shoot. Well, I'm hoping he hasn't seen any human activity, but because he's in the area he has. So I'm sitting there. He ends up getting to a point where he's standing behind a little bit of brush where I feel like there's enough distance, even though it's literally at this point 12 yards. There's enough distance between him and I where I can get my bow down and maybe even draw back on him. So he gets to that point, and at this point I'm like, I'm going to shoot him. Like, this is how this is going to work out. I need him to walk another couple steps, and I'm going to have literally an 8-yard shot down at him. So
Not yet.
I pull back as he walks out, and he's on a mission at this point. He's been milling around, but now he's kind of moving quick. And at this point, I don't feel comfortable stopping him. Just for whatever reason it is, I don't want to stop him at this spot because I feel like he's going to continue moving by me and get into a better position. Because when you're that vertical on a deer, it can be kind of risky. I'd rather shoot a deer at 25 yards than an 8.
100%. Yeah, could not agree more. Because early on in my bow hunting career, I took like a straight down shot.
No good.
Terrible idea.
You'll never find
Well,
blood.
your
No,
shot
and in
angle
fact,
is so
it was
much better.
the only deer I've ever lost.
Yep.
And I, like, God, just now bringing it up, I just feel terrible
Yep.
about it because I could see the arrow sticking out, and I knew he wasn't going to die from that. It's like he's going to walk around with that damn arrow
Stuck in him.
stuck in him. I just felt like shit. I mean, that was real early on. That's a rookie mistake.
Yep.
Don't take that straight
Nope.
down shot.
If they're within literally 10 yards and they're beneath you, you gotta
let
hold
them
back.
get out.
You
man.
gotta let them. And so that's where I'm drawn
And that
back.
all
in-
depends on height of
That
your
was a
stand
hard
too.
lesson
Yep.
learned too.
It-
Yeah.
you
I
got-
mean, I've shot deer at 6 or 7 yards, but my stand was maybe 5 feet off the
Right.
ground.
Yeah, so you're much flatter trajectory.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're looking at angles, and that's where I was stuck. I had drawn back. He walked to the spot. I thought, I'm like, no way. There's no way I can send this arrow at him because it's too up and down. So he now is in front of me, and he meanders right underneath my tree stand. And we left a trail camera down at the base of the tree stand, and he walks literally underneath me, and I'm drawn back, and I'm just following him, just slowly following him. And he walks under, and he sniffs the trail camera, and all of a sudden he's like, uh-oh, something's up.
Ruh-roh.
Right, and I'm drawn back, so that's the only saving grace I think he did what he did is because I was already drawn back in position, and I wasn't moving. I was just a big blob in a tree,
Right, yeah.
fully drawn back, and he looks up, and he spooks. All of a sudden, he's like, I don't know what's in the tree, but it's big, and I don't want to
Wasn't there before.
No, right,
Wasn't
exactly.
there yesterday.
So he bounds off. He takes, I don't know, he bounds off about 15, 20 yards. And for the most part, if you don't completely spook a deer, they're going to do the 20-yard trot, stop, turn around, and look back at you. So as soon as he looks up, I'm like, he's going to run. I'm going to wait for him to stop and see where he ends up.
Yeah, it's almost like they're like, okay, there's some
Yep,
danger here. I
nope,
don't know what
yep,
it is.
yep.
I'm gonna get some distance between me
Yep.
and it, and then turn and find out what the hell
Right.
it was.
Yep. And that's a time, too, where if you're not drawn back, if you don't draw back at that point in time, they're going to snatch you right out of that tree.
Yeah,
they're going to
for
bust
sure.
you. So
Yeah.
I'm already
They're
at
on
draw.
high alert now.
Yep. I'm already at full draw. And then he's already realized something's not right. And I don't necessarily care shooting deer at that point. But when he ended up coming out and popping out, he ended up popping out about 20 yards away on the other side of a piece of brush. And when he did, he was giving me a hard quartering shot. And at 20 yards, I'm like...
Quartering away?
Yep, quartering away. So I'm like, I got more access to his vitals. I can make this shot. Even with the brush in the way, I'm like, I got a chance with this. And just settled in because he wasn't going anywhere. And I let the arrow go. And as soon as I let the arrow go, it felt good. And then I heard the thwack, and he dropped. I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. Like... So there's two different things that go through your mind when that happens, especially with an archery equipment, is that, okay, so there's a good chance I have spined this deer. That's the
Right.
only reason why they drop.
Yep.
You know? And so knowing that he spined, my biggest thing was, like, I need to get myself composed because at this point I'm a mess. Because a deer sneaking up 20 yards,
Yeah.
he's underneath me
Yeah.
at this point.
Your
He's
adrenaline's just
I
like
am pumping.
pumping.
Right, and I'm trying to get my shit together essentially just so I can get my things together so I can get down from the tree because at this point my biggest focus is to make sure I can put this animal out of its misery.
Right.
And that's
Correct.
And you have to do that. You have to. So that's the first thing I do. I try to climb down, and he's not going anywhere. The spine shot that I ended up putting on him, he wasn't going to go anywhere. So I got down and I put another arrow in him, and that was the way it was. What ended up happening is where the arrow ended up is my shot window is that the arrow came in, and instead of hitting him behind the shoulder, it hit him a little bit high. And as soon as it hit him high, it dropped him. That's all it was. So I got lucky that it ended up hitting.
So it probably hit that scapula, that shoulder blade, and went up.
It did.
Into the
did.
scapula.
Yep,
It
exactly.
did hit the scapula. And actually, we were only about 80 yards apart.
Yeah,
so I could actually see. I just happened to kind of glance up towards his direction, and I seen the deer bound, and I pull my binoculars up just in time to see the deer and hear crack. Well, the deer did react just a slight bit, dropped just a slight bit, but, I mean, I think maybe, a couple inches. So, I mean, he really didn't. I mean, in the scheme of things, where your shot angle and where you hit him, I mean, you only missed by like 2-3 inches.
Yeah, so if you're shooting targets, you're like...
Nailed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe not. You're like, I could do a little better, but that's a dead deer.
You're right.
Because that's kind of what I do when I shoot.
Yep.
Yeah. Do I want everything in that one little black ring? Yeah, I do. But if I'm 2 inches out of it, I'm like, where I aim on a deer, that's still a dead deer. That's a lung.
Right.
I mean, I practice for a heart, and but also actually I prefer a double lung shot because A, I think they die faster. B, I don't ruin the heart, and the heart is
good eating.
Might be my best. Might be actually my favorite cut of that whole animal.
Right.
Yep.
I love the heart. If you're out there and you're leaving heart in the gut piles, you're a monster, and you ain't got to stop doing it.
Yeah.
Or send it to me because I will eat the shit out of it.
I try to save them when I can.
Right.
So.
But I think the only consolation, as badly as I felt, because that's the last thing I want to do is to shoot a deer like that. And I'm thankful that it did work out the way it did. But the one silver lining in all this is that we are on a remote island in the middle of a swamp, and dropping a deer in its tracks isn't necessarily the worst thing to have happen to a guy, because if we would have had to try to track this deer, who knows where he would have ended up.
Why don't I have a beer opener down here? This is stupid.
Well, it definitely was a
nice
one done, baby.
Definitely didn't hurt not having to track him into the swamp.
Yeah.
My God. That's the thing. That's the thing with this spot.
I would have rather had you hit him like that than gut shoot him.
Right. Yeah, because then we would never gotten out of there. Yeah. So the way things shook out, it worked out just fine.
Right.
So it's not ideal.
There's grouse back in those Oak Islands I showed you too. I've shot them many times.
Oh really?
Those
on
are
my
such
way
good
out.
eatings.
Like
I love partridge.
I always have my gun ready when I walk out of there. Going there in the dark to hunt ducks. Now on the way out, I'm like, always have the gun ready because multiple times I'll shoot grouse out there, and they're always so good about giving their position away.
I know.
Because they'll do that little.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, where is he? And you try to find him before he flushes,
Right.
And then I ground pound him. I'm not even.
I don't even care. Nope. No shame.
Me all you want.
Nope.
I don't even feel bad.
Nope. I don't
feel
either.
bad at all. I'm like,
That's
delicious ground pound.
Yep. I've done it so many times.
The last time I went in there, no grouse, but I did shoot a rabbit, which is the first rabbit I've shot out of there. So we walked out of there with a goose and a rabbit. So,
sounds like a good stew.
right. Yeah. So, I can't wait to pour into the satellite map with you when this is all over and really get and break it down.
Right.
Kind of fun.
So what else had happened?
But,
so deer
anyways,
shot. Yeah, deer's
he
dead.
shot that deer. I ended up getting down, going over there, and honestly, I had told him, I had even texted him. I said, "Hey man, shoot whatever you want. If you want to shoot a doe, I don't care. I mean, it'll suck getting it out, but I'm not.
Well, it's not going to suck any more than getting a buck out. I mean, it's
at least a buck has something to hold on to.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
You guys don't have a rope or anything like?
We
that
do,
deer
but
drag thing that like hooks into their mouth and you strap it around their head.
I do have one of those, but I
those
don't.
actually work really good. I've used them before.
I have one, but I've never used it.
Dude, I've used them before. They actually work really good, like surprisingly good.
Yeah,
yeah. So they're. Yeah, if you don't have one, get one. Like they work really good. Yeah, because buck has an antler, and I don't have any experience with that. So
right.
So
okay,
anyways,
Dale. One day.
at this point, I seen the deer when he shot it, but I didn't see antlers because I really couldn't see his head, so I had no idea what he shot. And either way, dude, I was so jacked and so pumped, like I was shaking, like I had shot that.
I was so excited.
I was like,
because it worked. Your little crazy adventure worked. It paid off.
Well, right, and that's the thing. I mean, going in somewhere completely blind, scouting, low impact scouting, found some sign, some track. Those fresh tracks we found were right by your stand.
Yep.
got him up, and that deer, completely not having ever been there, stepped foot one time, we put him a deer right underneath his tree.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Right.
So
Winning.
God, this has like got me
Winning.
so jacked to go try this spot.
and I'm
Because this has been rattling around in my brain for
Yep.
many years, and it's like I just needed that gentle push to go do it.
Yep.
Because I don't really want to
Well,
go in there by myself. You
that's
know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's
But
more
you
fun
two
to go
crazy
with
some
somebody.
bitches.
yeah.
Well, that's
Because Joel doesn't deer hunt.
Right.
I've been told I'm dumb. I've been told I'm crazy, and I'm probably a little bit of both. But I tell you what, you sure make a lot of friends when people see you kill deer on public
Right.
land.
Dude, I was just gonna say they're in the hunting realm of dick measuring. A good public land buck
Yep.
Right.
earns a lot of points.
And the
Yep.
thing is, I don't even want to. I don't think about hunting as a pecker measuring contest.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah, I say
But-
that tongue in cheek. But just
But no, I know
mean,
I know exactly what
yeah.
you're saying. Somebody that goes and shoots a buck on public land, there's a lot of guys thinks they're so much better than everybody else. Well, you know what? We're all hunters. Why are we fighting amongst each other?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
just dumb
I think
anyways.
scoring system is one of the biggest dividers in the hunting community that there's ever been. I think television hunting, like hunting over food plots, 5.5-year-old deer, all this stuff, it does not help hunting.
No.
Because there is a lot of areas in the country and a lot of people that hunt ground and want to shoot a 5.5-year-old buck. Well, a 5.5-year-old buck might not live in your area.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it hurts or helps it because it there's so much of that as perspective, right? As the person watching that video of the
Right.
guy that's on private land with a food plot, and they're managing. Maybe they have enough acres, or they're managing it, and they're
Right.
not shooting 3-year-old bucks. They're
Right.
letting them get big,
Right.
You know, and their feelings like, oh, that's a nice buck, but in a year or two, he's going to be real good. And people
Right.
watching are like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
I'm
Nope.
shooting that every time. So, but that's some people.
But how much of
But there's
that
other
is
people-
unrealistic for a majority of hunters?
Most of it is unrealistic for the
Yep.
majority of hunters. But what I'm trying to do is not demonize that because
No, I'm not saying
if it gets people excited,
Right.
you know, to go do it, even if the chance of them shooting a 180-inch deer is like slim to none where they live,
Right.
even if they have private land access, it still fires them up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, should you not go fishing because the chances of you catching a 43-inch northern on your little metro area lake it's just not going to happen because of all the pressure?
Well,
should you
no.
not go fishing?
No,
you
right.
should go fishing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
absolutely go fishing. But you're watching a fishing show, and
Right.
Al Linder's up wherever, and he's smashing giant fish every other cast.
Right.
Like, okay, is he in a fly-in spot in Canada because he has the money? Maybe, but it's still fun. It's still
Right.
fun to watch.
Right.
You know, so I'm.
Well, right,
My
and I
point
think-
is that I don't want to demonize somebody that's out there that is taking the time and the money,
Right.
to put in a food plot and to manage the deer herd the way they want, and they consistently kill 150 plus deer. Like, I don't want to
Right.
demonize that guy. Like,
Right.
he has a place in the hunting world too.
Right.
I think the conversation that needs to be had is that for the casual bystander, for
Right.
Joe Schmo Hunter out there, or Janet Schmo, whatever. I mean,
Right.
hey, that's one of the biggest
Right.
growing
Oh, absolutely. it is.
populations that they might actually save hunting.
Right.
Might be the females.
Right.
I believe
Because there's a
it.
big drop off in young males, but there's a large spike in young females.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, anything we're stronger together than we are alone. So,
Well, right.
you know,
And I think I shouldn't say one of the worst things, but I think there is a part of that there is being woodsmanship skills being lost.
true.
Yeah.
That
People
part is true.
are seeing scrapes in food plots, scrapes in the middle of the hardwood timber, and stuff like that. And guys will go and set on it because that's what they hear. Oh, mock scrape or hunting scrape, stuff like that. And I'm not saying hunting scrapes is bad.
It is bad
It-
because they generally hit scrapes at night.
Well, that is, and that's what
Yes.
I'm getting at. Hunting scrapes. I do hunt scrapes in location to bedding. It all depends. If I find a scrape coming out of a bedding area and it's where I either known or suspected bedding and it's within 100 to 150 yards of known bedding, I'll hunt it. And I've had amazing luck doing that. But if you're finding a scrape on the edge of a cornfield, there's very good odds, unless you're on a pretty good sized chunk of ground that isn't being pressured very heavy. That's a nighttime activity.
Even a rub line. A lot of guys will hunt rub lines on public land. Like, you know how a few times on a trail camera or whatever you've seen a buck rub a tree during the day? They generally just don't do it.
Right. Well,
so if you find a rub line, that's great information, right? Now you know there's bucks using that trail. Now figure out where they're going to be during the daytime.
Right.
Keep walking.
Well, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why I've gotten so big on hunting buck beds. There's no everybody you hear how many times you hear that buck's nocturnal. He never moves during the day.
No such thing.
That's not true.
No.
There's no such thing as a nocturnal deer. It's how far does he move during that daylight.
He might get up and mill around that tree.
That deer that deer might have a 100-yard area or a small quarter-acre bedding area that he feels comfortable moving within daylight. Well, if that deer is bedding on a swamp or in a swamp on an isolated tree, that deer is going to be on that bed. He's going to get up, and he may get up an hour and a half, 2 hours before dark. But it could take him that long to get 75 or 100 yards to where there's acorns or there's hardwood ground. So those deer a big mature deer doesn't usually move very far from his bed during daylight. That's why a lot of guys think that they're nocturnal. That's why guys that are getting big mature.
It's hard. I mean, I got to assume it's hard to move in on a bedded buck. I mean, you don't want to bump him out of there, right?
Well, you know what?
That's almost a win.
If you're bumping him.
It is.
To me, here's the thing. You've got to almost enjoy the failure as much as you do the success. Now, if I go in and I'm bumping deer, at least I know I'm getting close enough.
Yep. You're in their house.
If you're going in there and you're never bumping deer, you're not getting close enough.
You're too far, easily.
Now, I have read and I have heard that if you bump a deer, a lot of time, if like you play the wind, they'll circle around because that's kind of where they want to be.
Bump and dump.
Yep.
Bump and dump.
It's bump and dump.
That's what Dan Infalt calls it.
That's one of my signature bar moves, actually.
if you bump a deer out of a bed, there's a possibility if you can set up on the downwind side, they will try and circle back around downwind and see what spooked them.
That's hilarious.
But a big mature deer on public ground or any ground, they're using that bedding area for a reason. They're not ever getting messed with.
Yeah,
there's never human sign, anything like that. So if you go in and there's different types of bumping a deer. If he gets your wind, sees you, and you scare the hell out of him, that deer might not be back there for a while.
Full snort, flag up, hightailing out of there.
If you bump him and you have the wind in your face and he just hears something and gets up and takes off, that deer could be right back there the next day. They're there because they've been safe. That's a safe spot for them.
So what would be your plan? So, okay, let's take that scenario. You bump him, wind's in your face. He doesn't know what spooked him out of there.
But you see him.
What is your play? Is your play to back out right then and there?
I go get in his bed.
Yep.
Then.
I want to go
hang a stand right under his fucking
I might not hang a stand on his bed, but I saw him get out of that bed. So this is an opportunity to learn about that bed. You go, you get in the bed, get down to his level, and you look. What can he see and what can he not see? And that's your opportunity to pick your tree and know how high you can get up. Can I get in that tree 60 yards away and be up 10 feet, 12 feet? How high can I get? What can I get away with getting in quiet and getting set up on this deer?
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
So, and people will be like, oh, you can't go get in his bed. They're leaving human scent. Well, guess what? He's going to be back there. Your scent will wash away eventually. There's going to be a deer back in there. Even if he ain't back in there.
Especially if you're
right
in
away.
it. Like, so, sorry if I'm, tell me if I'm an idiot for thinking this. My brain's, moving now.
Watch out.
Especially in those spots where you're saying if there's an isolated tree in the middle of a cattail bed. What are his other options? Is he going to move quarter mile to a new bed?
He very well could.
Yeah, you could.
Or is he going to eventually he's going to want to get back to that bed, or another buck's going to take that bed because it's that good of a spot.
And it could be a situation where if you bump a deer, say you know there's bedding, say you've done your winter scouting or scouted in the summer and found this bed, and you're getting in tight and you bump him out of there. Okay, well, you don't have to get into that bed then because you already know you already found it during the summer or the winter, and you know where he's at. You can go back in the next day or the next morning and get in tight on it and try and set up on it. Now, morning hunting bedding is very difficult early in the year. It's a little easier later into the rut, but then they start getting really random and they start moving into rut bedding locations that they may bed here all summer through the fall.
Sure, but now then they're going to move to the does.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's where they can observe does leaving bedding. They'll be on a downwind side of the bedding area, but they can see the deer, see does leaving the bedding area.
Well, another thing to add to that, if let's say you do walk in on a deer and you bump him out, you now know where his escape route is. Right. You got 2 guys. You can figure out now. You can do a two-person try. So if you know that this is a good bedding spot, okay. So if he's gonna bolt out of there, he's gonna head this way.
If the wind is right.
Right.
So
you can figure it
say
out.
we could, me or Kevin could go set up on the other side on his exit trail. The other guy, once that guy's set up, can go in and try and shove that stand down his throat and get 60 yards from him.
Yep.
And if you do bump him, he's
going
headed
right.
that way.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you don't, win-win. Then he might get up and you might get a shot out.
And here's the key. There's a lot of guys that I wouldn't hunt with this way.
Right.
Because there is that greedy hunter mentality, and I'm just as guilty of it years ago as anybody else is, where you want to shoot the deer, I could have been sitting there, I could have shot that buck. But you know what? When I hunt with him or my dad or anyone else, I am just as happy watching him shoot that deer on Sunday as I was myself.
That would be me, even though I haven't shot a hard-horned buck, because it's just kind of the guide mentality where it's just like, I'm just not that selfish when it comes to this aspect. I love watching other people have success.
Me too.
Do I want to shoot a big deer? Absolutely.
Right.
But if I don't get it, but I had a hand in you getting a great deer,
perfect.
That's almost equal success.
You know how excited I was?
That wouldn't have happened without me.
Right.
Like, I get the share in that.
Right.
Like,
and it was so
awesome.
much fun for me to have scouted this area, picked the spot out, and said, Kevin, let's go out. And one of my buddies even said, I think one of you guys is going to see one. I even replied to him, and I said, God, I really hope Kevin shoots one.
Right.
Just because I love, dude,
I'm stoked about this spot that I showed. I was literally stoked about it. This has been in the back of my mind for 20 years.
Yeah.
For 20 years, I've seen bear tracks back there. There's wolf tracks back there.
We're going to go give it a sniff. That's what it sounds like.
This is going to be fun.
Well, right. And that's and I love hunting this way, and I've been doing a lot of it this year completely blind because I got the winter scouting I did do this year didn't pay off very well. I didn't really find much of what I was looking for. I never hung a trail camera in Minnesota all summer. At all. And you know what? To be honest with you, it's been less stressful, more relaxing, and more enjoyable hunting than it's ever been because this year I hung up the camera, so I'm not filming this year. Just this year I took a year off because I was like, you know what? I just need to I was getting burned out. It wasn't as enjoyable. It's like, you know what? I just need to go and get back to hunting and go out and find some new spots. Right.
It's a real thing.
And it's been so much fun just picking spots on the map that I feel are overlooked or extremely hard access. Going out there, I find deer sign and I'm having encounters with deer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, awesome. and here's the other thing a lot of people don't think about is on public lands, well, even private lands. A lot of the mature bucks are watching you access your property. They will bed where they can see human activity.
Sure.
And whether that be they're bedded up on the side hill overlooking your farmhouse, or they're overlooking your access trail, that's why there's guys that are killing bucks between parking lots on public land. Because nobody hunts there.
Yeah, right.
How many guys are hunting 50 yards off the road between two parking lots?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's good stuff, if there's good cover, and there's the things the deer need to feel comfortable, they're gonna be there.
They'll be there.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're really good about patterning humans.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when I lived in Matamidi, a little Twin Cities suburb, kind of right on the edge of what you would call the Twin Cities area. So like Matamidi can't shoot guns, but in May Township you can shoot firearms. So I mean that's the line. So we had a pretty big. It was like a 1 acre property that we were renting, and I had deer in my yard all the time. You know, eating out of my flower gardens, pissing me off, whatever. And I could damn near walk up to and pet those deer.
Right.
But if I go literally 15 yards into the woods where they're not used to people being,
freak.
Yep.
they are as wary as any deer anywhere
Yep.
in the wilderness. Like, they're like, why are you here?
Right. Well,
You're not in your place.
Yep.
Right.
And they'll spook. So you have to play the wind. You have to manage your scent. You have to manage your sound, movement, everything you would do anywhere else. You're like, these are city deer. They're so used to people. No. They're used to people. They're used to people being where people are used to being.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you move out of that pattern, they fucking know it.
Have you ever hunted a piece of ground and say there's a bike trail or there's a walking path in a piece of public ground or wherever, and those deer will walk right across that and not even flinch, even though there's 100 people scent on there? But if you get 50 or 60 yards off of that and they cut
Probably
human
less.
scent, they are on alert right now.
Because it's not where it's supposed to be.
Nope.
They know where it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know, and same thing with geese. You know, with waterfowling, it's like how are these park ducks? How are these park geese that I can walk up there hissing at me?
Yep.
But in a field,
They will come within 100 yards of you.
Right.
if my face is sticking out of my blind, they're gonna flare at 90 yards.
Right.
Well,
It's not that they understand what people are. They understand what humans are, but they also understand their role. They know where they're supposed to be and where they're not supposed to be.
Well, I have a family farm in Princeton, and it's funny that we bring this conversation up because when I first got into bow hunting, I literally hunted 25 yards off the backyard. I've seen more deer in that location than I have seen anywhere else on that entire farm.
Mm-hmm.
And and they're on high alert though, because I was younger and I didn't know nearly as well what I know now. But that's the thing, is that they knew that where people were coming from, but I was sitting in a spot that was just off of that, and you'd be surprised the amount of deer that would just walk
It's like
right by
my
you.
little 7 acres right here. I rarely go back there. And now I run back there to check my trail cameras with my wheeler so I don't have to get off.
Right.
I don't leave less actual human scent because for whatever reason, vehicle scent doesn't seem to bother them as much as human scent.
Right.
But it's like, since I've been doing that, it's like I notice them picking up my scent when I fuck up or when I'm lazy and like I fuck up and I'm not taking my scent into consideration. Right? They know my scent, They catch a north wind, they know my scent. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, what's he doing? He hasn't been back here all summer. Why is he back here now? Like, this is weird.
Right.
And that's going to change their behavior. It's like, I almost should just have flowers back there that I water every fucking day because then they'd get used to me going back there every day and they wouldn't change their pattern. They would be like, oh, yeah, he comes back there at 3 o'clock.
Well, at that point, you should just drive your four-wheeler right to where your stand is and climb up a tree. Because
I got a nice box stand back there.
Because if they know your four-wheeler and they smell
that's
it,
true.
You might as well.
But I don't usually leave it back there,
Well,
so that might throw them off.
Here's the other thing about them not knowing. There's 2 points I want to hit on. One is about them knowing where your scent is, and the other one is about trail cameras. But the first one is hunting the way we're hunting. And I told you I haven't hunted the same stand twice now. This is the second full year. You're catching those deer completely off guard. And as long as you're going in, and the other thing is when you're scouting, you don't want to walk past where you're hunting, where you're going to hang your stand and go back. Once you're there, you're there. Or you keep going. Yeah. Or if you back off, you better be able to shoot as far as you went with your scent.
Yeah.
Because those deer are going to come in there. It's going to be completely green, fresh, virgin set. They're not going to have any clue in the world you're there. And that's going to be your best sitting. How many times do you hear people, first time into the stand, it was awesome, I killed a big buck. Well, every single buck on my wall was killed from a hanging hunt or the first time into a stand for the year.
Yep.
Every one of them.
It makes a ton of sense.
Especially even your buck last year.
People in northern Minnesota, I mean, this is, I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to bring it up. The wolves in Minnesota, we've always had wolves. Like, even when the West was trying to recover their wolf population, we still had 3,000 to 5,000. Our pack has always been strong in Minnesota. And we've only had a season on them for 1 year, which is a whole nother fucking rabbit hole to go down. But I think a lot of hunters like to use that excuse. Like, man, we don't see deer anymore. And the wolves are up here, and they've just chased everything away. There might be some truth to that. But listen, there's been trail cameras set up by wildlife biologists. They'll put them on. A lot of times they'll put them on beaver dams because everything uses a beaver dam. It's a fucking highway for everything. Yep. It's a natural. They literally built a bridge for things to cross a waterway, and everything uses them. Bears, deer, raccoons, bobcats, wolves, coyotes, fox, fisher. Literally everything uses them. And if you look at like the timestamp, I remember watching like a time lapse a video of one of these trail cameras that they sent up on a beaver dam, and wolves would go past it 5:30 a.m. that day. A deer goes past it at 6:30 a.m. the next day. So it's not like they're like, "Ooh, wolf, run to the next county." Like, wolves are a natural part of the environment. Yep. They know. Like, they'll
be on alert.
They know wolves are a threat, right? But there's something that people don't understand, too. It's not just the scent. Bear hunters know this. A bear can smell better than, like, way better than a dog can. Like, they have one of the best noses in the world. Not only can they smell things, they know the age of that scent. And I believe deer are probably the same way. So it's not that the deer comes across that dam as like, oh, shit, a wolf was here. I need to turn around and get the fuck out of here. They're like, that's a wolf. That was an hour ago. We're good. Let's go. Be alert, but like, we're good. He wasn't just here.
Right.
So that excuse, the wolf excuse, I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it because wolves and deer have lived with each other for millennia. Like, they evolved together. Like, this isn't like, come on, man.
Deer get used to people. They pattern the people, like you said, and going to the same stands all the time. Well, if you're going to the same stand, you could have 40 acres and you and your buddy hunt it. And if you're hunting it every weekend and you're rotating between the same 4 stands, you're hunting it 2 guys every single weekend, 40 acres in 4 different spots.
They know you're going to be in that stand when you're going to be in that stand.
Yes, but you're also putting more pressure on that ground than there is on the public land down the road.
Good point.
Yep.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
You're hammering the hell out of it, and those deer get used to it, and they're going to just eventually start avoiding your ground.
Right.
Well, if you're up north, how many guys, I sit up on the ridge on opening day every year, and I sit down on the bench every year, and they send the 12-year-old kid off to where nobody hunts, nobody wants to hunt. How many 12-year-old kids shoot a big giant deer?
Right. Yep.
Because nobody goes over there.
Right.
They're catching that deer off guard, and that's where he never smells human scent and he feels comfortable.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So
people are just we're creatures of habit,
right?
I mean,
well, I haven't had success even going back to my family farm a couple years ago. We have those stands where uncles, cousins, they go out and hunt these same spots year after year. That's just the way hunting is. That's how deer camp is. That's how we do it. I went in there. I was like, I want to set up right here. This was one tree that we could. I think you're going to get a shot at a deer if anything. Hung that stand. My cousin came in and hunted it within 3 days. Shot 2 does out of it in one night.
Nice.
And he's like, how does that even work? Or I'm like, them deer are so patterned to knowing when we are on this ground. That stand is so fresh and so new that by the time they realized the gig was up, they were already dead.
Too late, yeah.
It was way too late.
Yep.
The tree fell down. We don't have that stand anymore. And even if that stand was still there, it's now null and void. We have to pick another spot. And, that's how you have, as the years change, water levels, you have to be that way. You can't get hung up in that predetermined habit of yours.
Yep. And you're better off, instead of hunting the same stand every day. This is something Dan Infalt has said, and I've found the same thing to be true. He says, you're better off throwing a dart at the map and hunting there a different spot every
you are
day
hunting
than
that
going and
stand
hunting
every
the
day.
same stand every
Makes
day.
sense.
Because you're going in on fresh sign. You're going in on fresh, unpressured area for the most part. And that's the same thing like trail cameras. I haven't been running trail cameras, and a lot of people run trail cameras and are hurting themselves more than they're helping themselves because they're checking them every week. The way I use trail cameras now is so vastly different than how I used them 5 years ago. And because if I go in and I put a camera up, I don't want to go back in a week and lay down another scent trail. If you're going in there and you're going to check your camera, you might as well be hunting because you're doing the same damage.
True.
And I like to use cameras to gather intel for the next year. I'll go in and I'll stick a camera back in a bedding area or back in somewhere way nasty I don't want to go back into. And I'll go in it and I'll do it when I hunt it or during the summer. And I don't check it until I go to hunt it again or over the winter.
So I was going to ask you, so when you guys went into the spot where Kevin shot his buck, you talked about the camera. So when did you set the camera up?
We set a camera up after we were done
Dark.
hunting.
Yep.
After you were done hunting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We did it in the dark.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that camera still there? I mean, is it?
Yeah,
so you're going to check it when?
Whenever,
Probably in February.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to wait
Well,
for it.
after the season and
Well,
just see what's out there?
honestly,
Unless we
if it
go back in and hunt it.
You're right.
Okay.
But if it freezes up, it's probably a little bit easier to get into it.
Right.
But at this point,
Now,
thing
if you have
is-
the cellular cameras,
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
at least then you're not going, like, you're not doing the damage. At
Right.
least you can
Yeah.
get the
And
information
that
without tampering.
Yep.
The cell cameras are definitely a good tool if you
Yep.
want to hang a however
They're
expensive
They are
And
camera.
then you
so
got to pay for the
expensive.
service.
They're
If
so
you have the money,
expensive.
I mean, it makes
Right.
sense.
And
I mean,
and to me, I mean, I would like to have them for some areas, and for other areas, it's like, well, whatever.
you know, I'm
it is what
giving
it is.
away a free idea. Here's the thing. If I've thought of it, it's in development right now. So
We've had this conversation before.
I've always thought that there should be a thing. So you know how you can do like some phones, they do like the not Apple, but like Samsung's, where you can transfer a picture by just
you can
touching
bump
phones or whatever.
Yeah.
How come that's not a thing? So that's like not cellular, but let's say for
It is a
instance,
thing.
It's
here
Bluetooth.
it is. See, it's a fucking thing.
Cuddy back has it.
Does it? So like I have my camera out here, my 7. I never get off my wheeler.
Yep.
I run up to it. I hold my phone up to the thing. It downloads all the pictures. I keep going.
Not exactly. But
Well,
what
see,
they
there, I
here's
just
what
gave
they
away a
do.
$1 million
Here's what
idea.
they have.
Or at least 10,000.
They have their Cuddy. It's whatever. Their Cuddy back. Their Cuddy Link system. I think you can link up to like 13 cameras,
Okay.
and you can daisy chain them up to 2 miles.
Oh.
And you have a home camera, and you set up all the other cameras. So you could have 5 cameras out back,
Sure.
and the
But I
home
only
camera,
have to go to one.
the home camera could be on your deck,
Right.
and
Sure.
all the cameras are sending them
that's
to
a
that
good
home
idea.
camera. So all you got to do is go up on your deck, pull your
That's
card, and look at
actually
all your
even better
cards.
than my idea.
Right.
So,
Day
so yeah,
late,
that's
dollar
what
short.
that's what they have.
Always.
But they
I mean,
haven't-
It's just I've come to I'm cool with it. I've come to the terms that if I thought of if I have a eureka moment, it's in development or on a shelf already. There are way smarter people out there than me. So
Me too.
it's just how it is.
So
Like, just know your role in the world and deal with it.
right. So that's the thing. I've gotten to where I either hang cameras in an area, like on a food source, a cornfield, somewhere I know odds are it's going to be nighttime activity, but I can get in there and check it without bothering my bedding area or the area I think they're bedding. And I use it just to find out if there's a buck in the area. And if I find a buck in the area, then it's on to me to go hunt him down. I'm not hunting for a trail cam picture. I'm hunting for a buck.
But you know what I have started doing is I bought a giant pack of latex gloves for the intent of like just when I clean birds, I clean
Right.
geese and ducks, like clean up as a snap.
Right. You're
My hands are clean. I don't have dried blood under my nails and in my cuticles and everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why? I should have been doing this for years.
Yep.
But
Right.
now, I'm an idiot, right? So I just finally stumbled upon this. Hey, this is a good idea. But I thought, hey, why don't I wear those latex gloves when I check my trail cameras? But even still doing that, it's funny how many of my pictures are those deer sniffing my camera.
Yep.
They're not on high alert.
No, they're just
Like,
curious
they're
to
just
know
like,
where that
Yeah,
smell
like
is.
literally, I have so many videos of them kissing my camera. Like, hey, what is this thing that keeps? What is that red light? You know, like they're not alert. It seems like they're curious. They come up to it more times than they don't.
Right.
But when I didn't use the gloves, though, they never seem to sniff it. So
Could be the latex
Yeah.
smell.
yeah, so
be.
it's not a human smell. At least
Right.
it's like it's a curious. They don't know what it is.
Right.
It brings them
figure it
into
out.
it. Like it's not freaking them out. But so there's something that
Yep.
those are cheap. Go to any Menards here in Minnesota or a Home Depot or whatever. Buy yourself a 50 or 100 pack of latex gloves. When you go check your cameras, it's a small little thing you can do to minimize your human scent.
Right.
Well, when you talk about latex gloves, especially if you ever decide to use a decoy, that's when you really
Ooh,
want to
yeah,
use them.
for
You
sure.
really
Yeah.
want to use latex gloves
Yeah.
because
I mean, trappers have been using rubber gloves for years.
yep,
I mean,
same idea,
for 50 years. I mean,
same deal.
Right.
whatever gets your scent off of that,
Yep.
the human scent. It's like it can be a different scent. It just
Yep.
can't be a human scent.
Right.
Like it's almost a different scent can work in your advantage because the curiosity thing kicks in. Like, well, that's a new, but the human scent, every animal knows what
Right.
the fuck that is.
Yeah, and
And they go.
then on the topic of scent control, I have gotten very lax in my scent. Like I do almost
Yep.
nothing.
Play the wind.
No scent control on
I don't
Sunday.
do anything.
None.
I was gonna ask you
Like
too.
I have I have an Ozonics. I haven't used it in 2 years. I have ozone bag.
There goes that sponsorship.
If I
Right.
if I remember to turn it on once in a while,
Yeah.
great. I have had my hunting clothes I wore on Sunday been sitting in my garage for the last 3 weeks with
Yeah.
my pellet grill just outside the garage and all that shit. And you know what? It comes down to the point. It doesn't matter what you do. If you get deer downwind to you, they're either gonna freak or it's not gonna bother them. And
it's
it's
hard to beat their nose,
It
so
is.
don't try.
they're
to beat
better
it.
than a bloodhound.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even if you think if you're not laying down ground scent, they can pick up on the smell of broken grass blades and
Right.
stuff like that. Their noses are
This is
insane.
their world.
Yep.
And the best thing you can do is learn and understand how the wind and thermals work. How
Yep.
when in the morning, when it's dark, your thermals are going to continue to fall until the sun starts warming it up, and then it's going to start sucking your thermals up.
Right.
It'll be either uphill or however.
Yeah. The mountain hunters know this very well. This
Right.
is typical.
And the
It's
same thing happens with if you're hunting near water. If that water warms up during the day and the sun starts falling, your thermals are going to suck towards that water or suck downhill, and it'll pull that because that water, the heat is rising off of that water as the ambient air temperature drops, and it's creating a vacuum and pulling your thermals down to that water. So if you can, and the best thing I've done is using milkweed. I mean, you can use little puffers, and that'll tell you what the wind is doing 4 feet away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Drop milkweed. Even if it's dead calm, you can drop milkweed and you'll watch it, and it will go for a long ways. And that's following your thermals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I use for checking the wind. And I can watch my thermal
So do
go
you
down.
grab some on your way out, or you just always have some with you?
I took about 30 milkweed pods.
Yeah, he's got a whole jar.
I stripped
Oh, the
them.
naturalists are gonna love you. You're
Yep.
helping the monarchs, bro.
I stripped all of them out, and I put them all in a freaking
peanut butter jar.
peanut butter jar,
Yeah.
and it is packed full.
Yeah.
You can eat milkweed, right?
I think you can, can't you?
You can. It's
Well,
delicious.
It's saved.
And so I took all the seeds and I
Well, you
tossed
don't
them.
wanna eat the seeds,
I
but-
tossed all the seeds back out where I got the milkweed from. But I dry it out and keep it in that container. And when I'll keep it in my chest pocket of my jacket or whatever. And whenever I get low, I'll throw a little more in there and I'll just drop it. But it is insane how you can see it for so far, and you can watch it go down. And I've had it
It'll,
where
like,
I've
pick back up.
Yep.
it'll go down,
Yep.
pick up, and it'll cut around. And the wind feels like it's coming right in your face. And you'll watch it'll go around the corner
Swirl
and then
around,
cut back
yeah.
out. It's like, holy cow. Or if you come in and a deer, you think your wind is great, and deer picks you off. You're like, what happened? You start dropping milkweed. Well, it'll be dropping and it'll curl around. It just
you have to you have to
crazy.
think about air like you think about water.
Right.
Yep.
So you got all these trees, right? So this current might be coming. This current of air is coming through, but you have eddies.
just like a
Yeah,
rock in a river.
Yep, just like you have eddies in a river, and they swirl behind it.
Yep.
Now, as let's say it swirls to the right, and there's another tree there, that current hits that, it's got to go somewhere. So now it curls to the left, and so it can kind of do this domino
Right.
effect and work its way back around to where that deer is.
Right.
Like you almost, it changes the way you look at trees when you think of air as water.
Yep.
Like if this was water, how would it be moving through this forest right
Right.
now? Because that's what air is doing.
Yep.
Or water
With a
coming.
little added thing, like it's on the current. So even if you're hunting a south wind, generally it's a warm wind, so you're going to have a lot of updraft. If you're hunting a north or an east wind, generally that's colder. So now that cold air is sinking, so that's going to have an effect on where those air currents go to.
Or if you're on the edge of an opening, your air comes over the top and boils back around
Right.
up.
Yep.
Or on a hill. That's
It's
why
like
a lot
your
of those
pickup truck. Your air comes over your cab, it gets into your bed of your truck, and it just rolls around in there.
Right.
So
And
same
that's-
thing. Air coming over trees, hits a field, it's going to drop off, and it's going to start spinning around.
Yep.
or if you're on a hill, that's why deer. If you go on a hill, like a ridge, go down 1/3, there's always a deer trail, because that wind coming up over the top is boiling
Oh,
back
so, yeah,
up
they're
and it's
getting
pulling
all
them.
the information
They're getting
from
stuff
everywhere.
from below. They're getting stuff
Yeah.
from above. It's in that wind
Mid
tunnel.
hill is a safe spot. Even geese. Just to interject some waterfall stuff, like a lot of times you think geese want to be on top of hills so they can see danger. If you ever go on the top of a hill, you can't see what's on the other side of that ridge. If you go down that slope just a little bit, like you said, like a third,
Just below
now
Military Crest.
I can see the top of the hill,
Yep.
and I can see everything below me coming. So any coyote that's trying to put a sneak on us, we're going to see him a mile. Literally, we're going to see him a mile away.
Right.
So setting your decoys, if the wind is right, on that downward slope, because it's two things: they're getting out of the wind, and they have visibility everywhere.
Yep.
Right.
Where if they're on the very tip of that hill, they can't see anything but a few yards around them. Everything down below, they can't see shit.
Right.
So this stuff to keep in mind as you're out there scouting and where you're
that's-
setting a stand.
Right.
That's stuff that seems like we've all learned in our own way.
And the hard
And,
way.
Well, and that's something
From
especially
failing.
It exactly it, because I learned that lesson hunting out west and draws. Like, understand it's like, oh, I got a west wind, that's a perfect wind for this setup, and then you get in there, and all of a sudden you're like, why is the wind blowing
In my
back at
face,
me?
yeah.
You're like, what in the world? And you're like, I am so screwed right
Updraft,
now.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you start putting that together, and you start using milkweed, and you really start thinking about land as water and air as water.
Watching the
Yeah.
sun, watching the angle,
Yep.
especially if you're in a hilly area. I mean,
Yep.
again, the western mountain guys know this very
Yep,
well.
they
But
do.
a lot of guys, if you're hunting in southeast Minnesota or southwestern Wisconsin, where it's very
Yep.
bluffy, very hilly, same things are happening.
Yep.
As that sun comes up in the east, it's pounding on those west-facing slopes.
Yep.
So you're going to have updraft there. But as soon as that sun starts to
setting.
go to that other angle, and now it's starting to hit that eastern slope,
Yep.
two things are going to happen. You're going to get the updraft on the east side, and now the air is sinking on the west side.
Yep.
So as it cools off, and these are these are things that mountain hunters. This is
Yep.
this is nothing. This is basic.
Yep,
This
I
is
know.
elementary kindergarten shit to
But us
to
flat-
west to mountain hunters. But for Midwesterners, I don't
We
think
don't-
they put a ton of
Nope.
thought into
Right.
it. And that hill doesn't have to be a bluff.
No.
Nope.
No,
It has to be
doesn't.
just enough angle to catch that sun.
Yep.
And it's going to start heating up, as any ice fisherman can attest. Even on a cold day, but it's clear and no wind, when that sun hits you, man, does that feel good?
Right.
So that sun, even in the middle of winter, has a lot of power to it.
does.
And if it's hitting anything dark, like tree bark, bare ground, if there's no snow cover, it is going to heat up, and it's going to create an updraft. And it
Right.
doesn't have to be a big hill;
No.
it just
No.
has to be enough to catch it.
Right.
Well, we get away with murder all the time hunting the hills of Nebraska when there's like little to no wind.
Right.
At that point, you can hunt wherever you want.
Yeah.
In a morning sit, go to where you think there's
Yeah.
going to be the biggest buck on that property. If you have just
you can
enough
get away.
wood,
If
I was
you
gonna
can
say
get
I
away
would
with your thermal.
I would think
Yep.
even if you're hunting a field edge, if that has the first, if that's catching rays, so there's
Right.
nothing in the field to hit it, but
Right.
as that sun pops up, it's
It
hitting a
does.
line of trees.
yeah.
Those trees are going to heat up, and that's
Yep.
going to create just a little
Yep.
bit of updraft.
It does,
and
but I think
carry
it's more
your
pronounced down in
scent
the draws.
up and
Yep.
away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously more because the angle is going to be there, but
Right.
anything, anything dark. That's how light works. It's the
Yep.
science behind
Yep.
it. You have to keep that. There's a lot of factors to keep in mind.
Right.
Yep.
And it can get overwhelming for a lot of people. But
Right.
there's just things to put in the tool bag.
Yep, that's all it
It's
is.
toolbox.
Yep.
Or a bait. Lure. It's your tackle box.
Right.
Because that's the thing. Even the conversation we're having today, if we would have had this 5 years ago, 3 years ago, it'd be a different conversation. It's
Right.
just the fact of the matter is that we're getting out and we're trying to push the envelope. You can't kill from the couch. You
No, that's
can't
right.
learn if you don't mess up. So get out there, give
Right.
it a whirl. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
You screw up.
How
so
many
what?
guys
You don't
would've
kill a
stayed
deer,
home?
which is
Right.
exactly the same amount of deer you would have killed
Exactly.
watching TV on your couch.
Exactly.
Well, and how many guys probably sat home on Sunday saying, God, it's so windy. I don't want to go sit in the wind. Well, we took that advantage of that wind
Yep.
to use it as audible cover.
Have you seen that video of that dude out west touching the horn on that mule deer?
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Dude,
Yeah.
he snuck
Yep.
up on a wild muley
Yep.
because the wind was blowing 30 mile an hour.
Yep.
That deer couldn't hear shit. The wind was in his face. He literally got close enough to a mule deer to touch his antler, and you saw the oh shit on that.
Yep.
He's like, and like you were saying, like if you bump a deer but he doesn't know what it is, like it got up and it bolted, but he had no idea why. He was like, what? Just touched my fucking antler?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Right.
Where'd that come from?
I believe in ghosts right now because
Right.
like something just fucking touched my antler.
Right.
Like, you could see that expression on that deer. Like it
Right.
freaked out, but it ran and it stopped and it turned back. Like what the fuck was that?
Yep.
Like it freaked him out. That's what I love that video, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
That like, dude, that's mad props to you, dude, for being able to sneak up on a bedded muley.
Well, and I really think, like I
Open
was saying,
country.
when we were hanging that stand, I said there are a couple of trees out there, and they were less than 100 yards.
Yeah.
And I said there could be deer bedded on that. But I honestly think because he did not hear the deer come out of the marsh. And when they come through that shit, it's noisy. And
Yeah.
going through
Deer
water.
and water. Deer and water.
cattails.
No,
You
they
can hear
make
'em
so much
coming.
noise.
And he didn't hear him coming. So
Nope.
that leads me to believe that deer
Was
where he
bedded
was at
right on
below the
edge.
hill
Yeah.
where
Yep.
the tall grass starts or by some clump of dogwood brush or something right there.
Yep.
And that deer, if you'd have been set up another 50 yards away,
Yeah.
out of the ball game
Yep.
completely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was set up 80 yards away. There's no way that deer would have gotten to me where
Yeah,
I
so
could
this is
shoot
the
him.
thing that when we pour over these maps, like we're gonna have to
Mm-hmm.
come up with a good plan. I'm gonna pick you guys' brains and
Yep.
see what you guys think about this spot. Because that spot I dropped the pin on is actually a spot I haven't been in. That's a pretty big chunk of
Yeah,
woods.
it
Like,
is.
easily we could all three hunt that woods. Now I know of a spot further east of that. It's a much smaller chunk of woods, but it's like one of those historical trails that you're talking about. Like everything used. I've seen bear tracks in there. I've seen everything, deer tracks in there. It's a freaking highway, but it's a smaller chunk
Right.
of oak. But all that high ground is all oak. And
Right.
it's
Yeah.
all
Well, and that's
alder,
the thing.
alder in the bogs. But then you come up and it's
Right.
all oaks.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
the big thing that I was trying to key on this year, early season, and last year. We have a bumper crop of oaks.
Yep.
And when you're trying to hunt deer on oaks, eating acorns, it's way easier to hunt them on an island in the swamp on an isolated oak tree versus trying to go and hunt them in some high ground on a ridge where they're bedding, and all they got to do is stand up and eat. They don't have to
Right,
move.
Yeah.
If they're hitting an island, they
Yeah,
at least are
what
coming
their
up to
food
that
sources
island.
out there. Then I'm like,
They're not out there.
this spot I showed you is a mile from the nearest agricultural land. Actually, probably more.
Right. And there could be deer
Right.
getting there at night and coming back.
Right, it's possible, but they're gonna have to get up pretty early during daylight
Oh,
to
yeah.
start making.
If
the
they're
track.
comfortable, like I was saying, you could have a big buck get up an hour and a half before daylight, and he might make it only 70, 80, 100 yards during daylight.
But I honestly don't think they move very much back there because the only real trail in is the trail that we use.
Yeah.
And, you see some deer tracks on it once in a while, but it's not a highway. So I don't think, that island I showed you, that's a big swath of ground. There's plenty of food there. They don't need to go to some farmer's corn field 2 miles away through heavy swamp. Why would they do that when they got all the food they need right there?
Right.
Well, there's even some deer that are just homebody like that.
Right.
I mean, I've read about it before where there's
Can you
bucks.
imagine the swamp donkeys that might live out there?
That's that's what you want, right? And
Well,
that's what you think of. It's like there very well could be a buck that maybe at some point in time found that spot and he has lived there his entire life and he has never left that spot.
Well, I've seen doe and I've seen fawn tracks out there. So
Right.
on those trails. So there's there's bucks out there that are like there's no reason for them to ever leave. They have everything. They have cover.
Yep.
They have food. They have bitches.
Yep. They're safe.
There's no people.
Yep.
This freaking deer Shangri-La.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I mean, I was just reading a post on that Hunting Beast forum page on Facebook that a guy shot a buck that his belly was full of corn way out in the swamp.
In the middle of nowhere.
The cornfield, the nearest cornfield is 1.5 miles away.
Oh, well, maybe they are doing that out there.
I mean, they do travel.
Talking on my ass.
Well, we've seen deer in Nebraska travel 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 miles within 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when a wild animal wants to get up and move, they move.
Yep.
They don't waste any time.
And those deer,
conviction.
they a lot of times will just go straight across the swamp. I mean, you'll find some of the trails you can actually see them. Like if I showed you the picture where we were at, you can see the deer trails in the swamp.
Yeah. From aerial photos, a lot of times you can see them, game trails.
Right.
And it's crazy how you're like, how does that little hoof on a 200-plus pound deer not just punch right through that?
And a lot of times they do.
How. Yeah.
A lot of times they do. That's why when you're walking out there and it's swampy and nasty, you do not step in the middle of the trail.
Yeah.
No.
You got to step on the cattail roots on the sides.
Yeah, the roots. Yeah, I've learned to do that.
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure
learned
you
that
walk,
to do that the hard way.
Yep.
Yeah, walk on the heads. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it was a hell of an adventure. I really think that we got in there, and we literally were set up.
That's
probably
cool.
under 50
So what was
yards
that deer? How many points?
8 point.
Nice 8-pointer.
Nice 8-pointer.
Nice 8-pointer.
Did you measure it?
No, I didn't put tape to him. I got bigger deer hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
But
If you had to guess, what would you say?
I don't know.
Probably between like 90 and 100 inches, maybe.
Yeah, he wasn't that big.
I mean, he wasn't a giant, but
no.
Shit,
It's the fact
of
that
the adventure.
It's the adventure
story
part.
getting there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool,
Right.
dude.
That might be one of the coolest. That deer will always have a sweet.
That might be one of the coolest deer we killed out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what it
It'd
is.
be a euro. It'd be a
Right.
good skull mount.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean,
that's
and I guarantee you, we keep doing this.
Yep.
It's a matter of time before we freaking connect on something big.
Yep.
I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
really think that spot will only get better as the year goes. And I really think that once there starts getting to be more pressure, if people start locally bow hunting into October or after the first weekend of gun season,
Man, is that a
spot is
spot?
going to get loaded.
Yep.
for sure.
And that's the biggest thing I first started looking at is like, man, there's gonna be so many deer in here at some point in time. It's just when.
And I could see that happening at the spot that I showed you too, because like I said, there's elements of this state forest that get absolutely piss pounded.
Right.
Where are they going to go? Are they going to go further into human habitation, or are they going to push out into that swamp?
People
where
overlook.
that's
nobody's
why-
at.
People overlook the escape routes.
Yeah.
They don't think like a deer sometimes.
Well, and a lot of times some of the best cover for them to escape to is when there's pressure on private ground. They don't go to other private ground because that's getting pressure
hit
too. A lot of
public.
times they'll go to public because that's the undesirable land. That's why it's public.
And predictable, because people park in the same spot and
Yep.
they walk to the same spots, so they can hit that narrow strip, like you were saying, in between two parking lots where they don't ever smell people. Nobody goes there. So like, here's my little corridor. Here's my human free,
or they go way back on a
free
swamp,
corridor.
an island out in the swamp.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
which could be this spot here, but
Right.
I was gonna wrap this up because you got to get going not too distant future. But Kevin,
yes.
the upcoming ice season, I know you're thinking about it.
I'm
'cause
so
I know
pumped.
I'm thinking about
I'm
it.
so pumped. So I am so pumped with this next coming season.
So
I need to get out and do some pre-fishing already.
Minnesota Made has expanded to 30 teams.
Bring it on.
How many teams did we have last year?
25.
25. So
Yeah,
it's not.
20.
It
But we
didn't
dropped
grow
so
that much.
So what happened is we lost 4 teams from last year, and then originally when I talked to Paul, we had 8 new teams, so we were at 29.
And some people switch partners. I heard in a
Doesn't
thing.
matter.
No,
So,
I'm just
you know what I mean?
like
Yep.
I find that's a weird thing. Did I guess I'm gonna say maybe you don't even know. Is it like 2 teams that did some wife swapping?
No.
Or is it just their partner couldn't do it, so they got a new partner?
Well,
So there's one guy that was in the league last year, but now there's
Yep.
going to be a new guy.
well, that's how I got in. Is that I fished with another guy.
This
and-
clearly wasn't on your skill. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. I fished with another guy. So I've been bird dogged and for a long time to get into tournament fishing, and I was just like, no. And then finally I was like, okay, I'll do it with a guy because I knew him. And after one season of it, he decided to go with a different partner. I was like, fine, free and dandy, go for it. I recruited somebody new,
Okay.
and that's how now me and my cousin
Do you ever
fish.
notice
Cool.
that the same guys end up with new partners every year?
Yeah.
Might be some. When there's
Trust me.
smoke, there's fire.
I've noticed it because I've seen it in the bass fishing world too.
But either
You
way,
tournament bass fish?
he used to.
Oh yeah, I did.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
that.
A bunch, dude. I had a Ranger 519. I did 15, 18 tournaments a
Oh,
year.
I didn't even know you were a fisherman. I thought you were
Yeah.
just
Oh,
hardcore
fuck.
hunter.
Oh no.
Oh, you guys went bass fishing. I was all bummed out. I'm like, what the
Well, fucking hit me up,
Where's
bro.
my fucking invite? I was
Bro,
like,
I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
invite you.
Yeah.
oh no, I got 21 rods and $5,000
Yeah.
in
Shit, you got
tackle
more
sitting in
rods
my
than I
He
got.
does.
Let's
He's
sitting
got
in
a
my
pile of-
basement ready to go.
He's got a pile of stuff.
Went to Nebraska farm pond, caught
I
seven.
know. Kevin's been.
I
I
caught
don't.
talking
I've,
about
I've
it.
mentioned
I
it.
put a 7.5 pounder on the bank this
Jesus
year.
Yeah.
Christ.
And then 2 6.5s after that.
Yep.
Broke
It's
my
fun.
rod landing the one.
When are we
Yep.
going?
Hey,
When you want to
Frogging.
go? Yep.
Nice.
Frogging.
Well, it's a it's literally a farm pond. You could
With a
throw
oh,
frog.
dude.
like drill a hole in an actual kitchen spoon, put a hook on it, cast
Yeah.
that bitch
Dude, it
out.
was
You're
awesome.
gonna catch something. It's like
Me and your-
something different in my house. I'm gonna
Right.
eat that.
Me and
Yep.
his cousin caught over 100 bass in like 2 hours.
Yeah, I believe it.
But
That's
dude, oh my
retarded.
god, dude, that thing, 23-inch long. Dude, he was like this across the bottom, from belly to back was like this, dude, just a slob.
Pigs.
Eating. Some obviously there's panfish in there too. Then.
Yep.
They got to be eating something.
Crappies and
Bluegills.
bluegills, and yeah.
We haven't found them yet, but
That's
I've
cool.
caught a couple crappies out of that pond.
Dude.
But
And they're
anyway,
always
so
in the
you,
same
Kevin,
end.
you have a new partner for this year. Is that what you're
no,
telling me?
no.
Oh, same part.
Nope,
team.
same partner, same
team.
rodeo.
Okay,
But
okay.
looking forward to it. I want to get out and pre-fish all these lakes before the ice hits. That's my
We're doing
biggest
it.
key.
We've
Yep.
already marked a few.
I know. I talked to
weed
Joel.
patches.
I talked to Joel yesterday.
Joel, shut up.
Yeah, I talked to Joel. I can't. I gotta. Well, that's the thing. Him and I, it's always like we need to go do stuff together. But honestly, it's on my end. I've been so freaking busy
Yeah.
with work. I can't get away, and that's why we went hunting on a Sunday because I was working Saturday for
Yeah.
10 hours in the rain.
Speaking of which, I got another spot we need
I
your
know.
other boat for.
That's fine. That's fine.
We got another spot. I just showed you.
But I'm looking forward to it because
Gisborne
I've.
and I have been eyeballing it up, and I said, well, Kevin's got a boat. Let's get him to go with us.
Yep. I got all of it.
Kayak.
I got all sorts of things.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think you're going to kayak this one. It's a
No.
long ways.
What else do I know? I've picked up a lot of information since last year. I'm kind of trying to progress in my knowledge.
Oh yeah.
And, like, especially if anyone's listening to this and you tournament fish, go and listen to Doug Glimmerville's podcast with...
Glimmervine.
Glimmervine, sorry. Doug. Go listen-
Smackdown
Yep,
Outdoors podcast.
Smackdown, throw out to him. He has a conversation with Lawrence Luoma.
Oh yeah, we talked about those
Yep,
little tiny
yep.
palm rods.
Is-
and the,
He talks
yeah.
about palm rods. He talks about fishing for the USA team. He talks about tournament fishing. If you want to get that sort of technical information that maybe only 5% of fishermen need or want to know, that is a great podcast that will
Yeah.
it opened my eyes up to a
Yeah.
lot of different things.
Yeah, me too. Mine too. Yeah.
Yep, because I remember when I first listened to it, I wasn't even out yet. It was on Facebook Live,
Yep.
and I listened to it, and I texted Joel. I'm like, Joel, you need to go skip to an hour forward and listen for the rest. There's so much gems in that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've met him before. He is one of the nicest guys. If you have any questions about anything when it comes to fishing tactics, gear, he is an awesome resource. So, Lawrence, if you hear this,
Yeah.
you might
I
get some
suppose I
feedback.
should probably reach out to him, get him on this one.
Yeah, he's
It's
good.
so weird because like Doug and I are friends, and
Yep.
we work together a lot. And
Yep.
it's like, so he'll have a guest. I'm like, oh, I gotta get him on. It's like, then I'll get
Yep.
him on. I'm like, back to it's like,
Um,
and we're in the same market, if you will.
Yep.
So it's like, I almost need to like space those
Yep.
guests out a little bit, so so like the consumers aren't just getting bombarded with the same
Right.
stuff. But with that said, there's different perspective too. So
There
the
is.
questions that Doug's going to ask might not be the questions that I
Right.
ask. And his, I mean, kind of, Doug is more like tips and facts kind of based. I mean, he's very conversational too.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's ever listened to this show
Right.
knows that I go down rabbit holes, and mine's much more casual,
Right.
much more story inclined, much more bullshit inclined. You
Yep.
might accidentally learn something,
Right.
but that's not like my full on.
No. Right.
I like the human aspect of it. I like the you know, I like the conversational pieces. That's what I've always wanted this podcast to be.
Right.
Was that extension, and people have heard me say this 8 zillion times.
Right.
The extension of deer camp. All right, we were rudely interrupted by dying batteries, which I thought when I started this, I'm like, you know what? I didn't use the last time I recorded on this. I didn't use like a ton of battery power, so I thought it would be good. Because it has a thing where you can plug it in. That's the safe route. Lazy me didn't do that.
Risque.
But here we are still chatting in it, and
died.
it did die out. So I was on a rant about something.
Talking about what you were wanting the podcast to be.
Right.
the
Oh,
extension
yeah.
of deer
Well, you know what?
camp.
Doesn't
Here's
matter
what
that that dropped off because
So-
everybody's heard me say that thing. But
Right.
that's but
So
if you haven't,
right.
tune in, subscribe to the SmackDown Outdoors podcast
Yeah.
with Doug Limmerveen. He's a great dude. But yeah, we work. But it's like we always like. I'll have a guest, or he was like, "Oh, I need to get him on," and he'll have a guest, and then to get him on, it's like try to space them out so we're not double dipping in the same market. But
Right.
there's room for everybody. So
Right.
I
Well,
love
if-
that we have.
If
this
you
really
can figure out a
camaraderie.
way to get Dan on here,
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just
I
send a
would
message
I
and
would
see
be
what
in,
happens.
if there's a way to do it, I'd even be interested because there's some
Right.
questions.
All right, yeah.
First, my own
That'd be
selfish
good. No,
my
no,
own
no.
selfish reasons.
Hey,
I
you know
have
what,
questions
though?
that I would like
because
to ask him.
you're a consumer of his information, right? I
Right.
think that would be awesome. So people listening to it could hear. They're going to have a lot of the same questions that you do. So if you could do a Q&A with him, shit, that's the easiest podcast
Right.
I'll ever host. I'm going to just drink more beer. I'm going to sit back and not say 2 words, which is going to make everybody fucking happy. And then you guys just go at it. That would be great.
I mean, I honestly, I mean, I've listened. I don't know if there's a podcast he's done out there that I haven't listened to. I'll go at work and I'll put my headphones, my earmuffs on at work with the Bluetooth, and I'll just binge it because I like listening to what he talks about because he's a no BS kind of guy. I mean, he tells you how it is and what he's seeing, and he's very open to giving information out. And he's not. There's some guys out there that are doing similar things, but he isn't the guy that has the huge ego, and he doesn't think he's better than everybody else. And he's very. I enjoy listening to him for that reason.
If you look at all the big names in the outdoor industry, whether they're fishing or hunting or whatever it is, they all give a lot of great information. And I don't know why people are so afraid of that. It's like if I give you tips on how to catch fish or how to find deer or how to hunt geese or ducks or whatever, there's not competition for me.
Right.
Unless I'm talking about very specific spots where people can come hunt, because you can apply this information to your state, to your land, to your county, to your it's
Right.
not you shoot a buck in Nebraska. That's not a buck I'm not going to shoot here in Minnesota.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Well,
the people that hang on like I don't want to give you these tips because because this is a secret thing that I stumbled upon. It's like.
Right.
It's not really going to hurt you, dude.
And you know what? I mean, aside from giving out actual spots, I mean, I think there are guys that, like I said earlier, there's that somewhat selfish hunter, and then there's the hunter like you and I and Kevin that when you
Nailed
go
it.
hunting with your buddies,
Nailed it.
you are just as happy to see them.
Hey, I found the air screen from the missing microphone. Awesome. I was wondering where that went.
We're all just as happy to see
looking for a beer cap when I found a
dog hair covered
found a
microphone
pop screen.
cover.
Nice.
All right, sweet.
We're just as happy to see each other
Yeah.
shoot one as we would to shoot it
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. I mean, like I said, I'm no joke. I was just as tore up and shaken in my stand when he shot his deer
That's
as I would have if I had
Yeah.
pulled the trigger.
So if when we go to this spot that I showed you, if I don't shoot anything, I don't even give a shit.
No.
Like if one of you two be like, I found this spot.
Yeah.
Like this is my spot, and
Yeah.
it worked.
Right.
Fuck yes.
Well, that's kind of how I was. It's like it made me feel good, like a success and a confidence builder for me, him shooting that deer, because I put in the e-scouting. I mapped out, dude, where I put my stand. I had dropped a pin. I had found the sign going in there. I had dropped a pin. I went to mark my stand, and my red dot on my OnX was exactly where I had dropped the pin where I thought I might need to be put in a stand.
Sweet.
Like, exact spot.
Yep.
It's like the maps, and I've learned a lot about reading maps just over the last few years. And sometimes it can be as simple as going out to a spot and, excuse me, verifying what you're seeing on the map to what you're seeing out there. Because when I originally looked at it, it didn't look to have as much brush growth in the marsh as we had. I thought it was going to be more cattails than it was. So that was a little different, but I had never been there. So that's the little things you can pick up on, even from just going to a spot. Even if you don't have any success, you got to take something from every hunt and learn something. And whether it's, well, maybe this spot is better in the rut. And I think that spot probably is better closer to the rut.
That's odd they say, because I was just thinking about this spot. Like we're like a week away from pre-rut really starting here in Minnesota, where you're going to start seeing some bucks you haven't seen in your trail camera, some young ones still really starting to kind of expand their range, getting pretty close, mid-October. So I thought about that in regards to this spot. Like, would that be good for us because we're going to see more action, or is that going to be bad for us because they're going to be moving more out of a small hometown range?
We won't know until we're in it. And you can that boots on the ground intel is greater than anything you can ever do from your cell phone or your couch.
Right. And the other thing is if we go in there a little bit, I mean, I'm still gonna try and hunt buck bedding, because even now, the October lull,
that's a joke.
If you're tight in on deer bedding, they're gonna be there. They're still gonna move during daylight. It's just how far.
I think of that October lull is kind of like the start of pre-rut, where it's like you're not seeing these deer anymore that you have been seeing because younger bucks are starting to bump does out of their areas. They're changing their routes. Like, they're starting to feel,
I think,
a little funny about girls.
I think part of it is the change in feed.
Yeah, it's all food.
That could be too. That could very well be. Yeah, crops are starting to come out.
Stuff like that. But I think regardless, even all the way up until the 1st of November, I would still plan on hunting buck beds. And, I mean, when they start cruising, but those deer are still going to be bedding in somewhat predictable areas. And the nice thing, if we were to go in there in 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot more sign laid down than there is now, because the rubbing and scraping activity is going to increase. Now, the thing is, you have to be able to differentiate between night scrape activity and possible daytime, and that's based on location to suspected bedding.
Sure.
So
if it's farther away from the bedding,
if I'm going nighttime in and I find a bunch of scrapes and they're brown and dry and stuff like that, I walk right past them. I'm looking for scrapes that are wet.
Or you could
still
smell
bleeding.
them. You could smell them before you get to them.
Right, the rubs that are still freaking dripping sap that are just fresh, like today fresh.
Right, yeah.
In location to bedding. If I find that, I'm hanging a stand right now.
You gotta be close.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's my goal is, if I know where there's deer bedding, I want to be hanging my stand between 100 and 150 yards at most, depending on the area. If it's an isolated tree 100 yards out in the cattail swamp, there's pretty good chance he'll get to that dry ground by dark, but it might be at closing time. But I want to be as close as I can possibly get to that bed without blowing him out of there. Now, I might blow him out of there once in a while, but whatever. It is what it is. On to the next.
Right.
That's the beauty of hunting public land. There is hundreds and thousands of acres of it.
Thankfully.
Right,
We have a lot of public land in the state.
Yep.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with hunting private. I still have private ground, but I'm not hunting it.
Yeah,
I have private ground that I have a spot. I found buck bedding on it, but I have a feeling that it is rut bedding based on they're not wore-in beds, and they're just shredded with rubs all the way around them. So I'm thinking they're more beds in location to doe bedding, and I'm waiting for that end of
time of year.
October, early November, when those deer might be back in there, and I can get in on an island and hang within 60 yards of them. So, and that's the thing. And some of that stuff you don't learn. Like, another thing Dan preaches is he'll hunt a spot if he knows it's a good spot and he thinks he wants to go back in there, or he knows there's a good deer in there. He'll hunt it 3 times a year: early, rut, and late. And that's it. He's not in there every weekend.
Right.
And sometimes if it's a new spot, maybe early there, you go in there and there's some sign, but it ain't great. But you go in there during the rut, it's just tore up. Or you go in there the first 2 times, there's not much, and you hit it the 3rd time, and, well, okay, that's full of deer. This is more of a late season spot. That's how you start learning when you need to be in areas.
Mm-hmm.
And some areas are great early season because they're around isolated oaks on an island out in the swamp. Some of them are great rut locations because you can get in tight on bedding in location to doe bedding. And I don't sit funnels like I used to, and especially on public land. I don't sit funnels or pinch points, stuff like that, because if every big deer ran through a funnel and pinch point like people preach, there wouldn't be any out there.
Right, yeah. It'd be too easy to pick them off.
Right.
I mean, at least during daylight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there still comes down to you have to be in.
I don't usually get fired up about bow hunting until pre-rut because I generally just hunt my little acreage here, and that's when I start seeing
Let's change that.
more stuff, just because this is when pre-rut comes. They start running this ridge to the west.
You know
of me.
you have a really, really good marsh right by your house here.
Carlos Avery is
Right.
it's piss pounded. But I've often talked about going out to those. There's oak islands in the middle of that thing too.
There's big deer shot out of there every single
I've been in there over
Yeah.
2 miles back and found some really good
Oh yeah,
signs.
there's big bucks get killed out of there every single year.
There's
Yeah,
a reason
for
why.
sure.
But
Yep.
there's a lot of
But
people
now
that do
I'm getting
hunt it.
really excited about hunting this other spot,
Right.
which we're going to pour over here in a little bit. I want to go back to Kevin, back to ice fishing, because before our battery died, we were talking about that. So with that podcast that you listen to,
Yep.
what are you focusing on this year? More scouting? More pre-fishing?
So my initial thing is, yes, I want to pre-scout or pre-fish. So I want to go and see how these lakes, because we already know what the lakes we're fishing.
Yep.
I want to see how they just lay out with a boat, because it's a lot easier to traverse a lake or a
Right.
body of water with
Yep.
a boat than it is ever with augers.
Correct.
Side imaging is your
Yeah,
friend.
side
Yes,
imaging
yeah,
is your best
yeah.
friend.
And
So-
cameras.
right,
Don't
and
forget the
cameras.
camera.
And so that's the process that now that I filled a buck tag already in Minnesota and I have my Nebraska trip in a few weeks, this month of October, I need to be in a boat at some point in time in the next few weekends going to these lakes I've never
You
fished
might
before.
not ever pick up a rod.
And that's exactly it. I will never pick up a rod. Pre-fishing, scouting for fishing, won't pick up a rod.
Dropping waypoints on cabbage patches.
Exactly. And that's a thing. But when it comes to gear side, like last year I dabbled with the Shuley reel.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I know more about the technical side of it, I now know where I need to go with my gear.
Yeah, and that's something I think I need to dip my toes into.
Yep. So what it comes down to is that I want to be a better proficient fisher when it comes to tight lining, and understanding and having the knowledge and now understanding of what you're really actually trying to do is huge. And now I'm just excited to go and try it, because last year I was catching fish off of a schoolie reel, not a big problem. But now knowing what the type of rod and the reason why you want to use a specific rod and a specific length and the specific line and the reasons why behind that, it's filled in all the blanks that I was trying to figure out on my own. And so I'm
And
excited.
honestly,
I'm
the
excited.
schoolie reels, I mean, I don't even own one. I
Right.
need to pick one up. And,
$7 shields.
and
You can
start
order them
trying
by
to-
the
yeah,
truck
they're
pull.
Super,
You
they're
can buy-
super cheap. But I don't need a whole reel full of line, because what's the deepest we fished last year? 15 feet on Pokegama?
I didn't fish anything deeper than 12 last year.
Yeah, so after Pokegama, once we got into lakes that had weeds, it was
Yeah.
10 or less.
Right. So at that point, I didn't. Yeah. Why? Because people. That's the thing. Most fishermen are gonna go out to the crappie holes or the
Yeah.
holes that they find.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if you can get out right on a boat and find where fish are right now today. They will be there more than likely in January,
As long
February,
as those weeds
March.
are still alive.
Yep. If the weeds are green, they'll be there. And so that's That's the reason why you do tournament fishing, is because you now open your mind and you meet people that are like-minded in that aspect, and you start figuring it out.
When I talked Joel, he was pretty hesitant. When I finally talked Joel into joining this tournament league when there was an opening, and we felt like we would be pretty competitive because we kind of, not being in a tournament, we kind of fished tournament style, if you will. Anyways, we drilled a shit ton of holes. We were never content with sitting on a bucket.
Right.
It's like, if we're not catching fish, we need to figure out why we're not catching fish. We were just kind of competitive within ourselves to consistently put fish on the ice. So then when it was a natural transition into the tournament side of it. But even with that said, we learned a shit ton last year. And so we really want to up our game, and we were finished in the top 10 last year. So, but we want to finish in the top 5 this year.
Right?
I mean, is it a lofty goal? Yeah, but
you never.
Let's do it.
For me, it's one of those deals where it's like, I want to shoot for that, but it's like I want to make sure I can capture the times where I don't and the lessons I learned, because like.
There's always something to learn.
Right. And like, like it was great fishing in the top 5 in Pokegama. Like, that was a really cool feeling. But in all reality, the biggest reminder of me was Maple Lake when it was 20 below out and we finished, I think, 18th, 19th. Why did I finish 18th and 19th? What did I miss? Because we had fish put to bed. We thought we knew we were on the spot. We couldn't catch them. It was just
because it's hard to get a 7-inch bluegill out of that lake. We didn't have a full limit that day either.
I know, but that's what drives me to get better, and it makes me excited, especially fishing new.
Like 11th or something that day.
Yeah, it was bad.
I was pissed.
That was bad. But you're fishing with Austin. So.
Well, yeah, I had a sub Austin. You suck.
Can't catch a bluegill. I heard that on the ice that day. Austin can't catch a bluegill.
I do have to give him credit though. When
he showed up. When we
first started though, he was catching crappies right out of the gate, and I, for whatever reason, couldn't buy a bite with like the first 30 minutes when people were like plucking fish out of holes like crazy, and I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, when the hard part came around, when it was filling out that bluegill bag, he fell flat. Austin.
But that's okay, because that's the thing I've always been told about tournament
Joel's
fishing.
Fault,
right?
Because he should have just been there.
He should have been, Mr. Whiny. But anyways, no, that's the reason why you tournament fisher. Whatever you're comfortable, it's a life thing. Whatever you may be comfortable with, find the next level. If you don't know what the next level is, find out who's doing it better and try to figure out a way to challenge you, because if you get stuck in that same routine, you're either going to become disinterested at some point in time, or you're never going to be able to expand what you know. And for me,
we're not there.
No,
we want to learn more.
Exactly.
We want to do better. And like I said, our goal is to be top 5, which is a great goal. But even if we came in somehow dead last, but we had a plaque.
Right. I know. Oh man, me and my cousin have talked about it.
I want to win.
I went over to Paul's.
A lake.
I've seen both of Paul's plaques sitting on his wall. I'm like, God dang it! I want one of those so bad. The things I would do for a plaque.
That is the thing.
So like messed up. I don't care about the money. Don't care about the prizes. Don't care about all the hours.
No.
I just want one of those stupid little old
I
plaques.
Want to win an event. I want to win a lake. I want to win a goddamn lake.
I beat 30 other two-man teams.
However I finish the rest of the season,
doesn't matter.
I don't care. I want to win a lake. Damn it.
Right. And I hope I do it like Tim and Bubba did on Tonka, where they just stumped everybody by a whole pound.
Oh, yeah.
They had the two huge crappies.
Honestly, don't care. If I edge them up by half an ounce, don't give a shit. As long as I get that goddamn plaque.
I lost Big Fish by .01 on one lake, and I lost it for the year by that too.
Oh,
so that
shit.
But you know what?
That's fishing though.
It's fishing. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's
dude. Listen. It's a group of really good sticks.
There are some good sticks out there. And that's the thing. If anyone ever wants to get into it, you need to get into it, because
I'm pumped that we have a female team this year.
I just heard that.
I can't wait to see how they turn out.
I know they have one in the UPL because I follow them. Because I'm a big fan of them just as much as I hope they're a fan of us. And they have a couple women anglers out there, and they seem to rock it. And hell
There's no reason they shouldn't.
Right. Hell yeah. Get out there. Do it. Like, that's awesome. Like,
genitalia doesn't matter how you fish.
It's all about
knowledge.
Sticks.
It's about it's like how you do. So we're long overdue to have female teams.
So
sure.
If they listen to this, I can't wait to meet you guys. I can't wait to share stuff with you.
I need to get them on.
Right.
I gotta find out who they are.
Right.
Hey, if you're listening to this, hit me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get you on. That'd be sweet.
Yep. If you guys need
help, I scheduled with Paul and in Cooch, though. We're
Did
gonna
ya?
do a preseason. Yeah.
Oh, I
think
talked
it's
to.
like. Did
you pick up your sweatshirt?
21st. No, not yet.
Oh
I'm gonna
man,
make him bring it to me.
they're so.
Hand deliver.
I don't. They're so worth it. They look so good.
Oh, God,
I feel so good.
Dude,
in
those
it.
whole
Oh,
Kendra's
know.
whole hopper hoodies are
Yeah.
the bomb, dude.
Yep.
If you're an ice fisherman and you're not like a sit in a nice warm shack kind of ice fisherman, do yourself a favor.
Go get one.
Buy a Kendra's
Yep.
whole hopper hoodie. Dude, they
Kenders.com.
are freaking amazing.
Yep, they're
like
worth.
we talked earlier in this about boots, like getting a
Yep.
good pair of boots. These are boots for your torso.
Yep.
These things
Yep.
are amazing.
Yep.
They cold, dead, stop the wind.
Yep.
You don't wear these hoodies inside.
No, you will
sweat
sweat to
your
death.
balls off.
Yeah.
Even women will sweat their balls off.
Right. Yeah. That's how good they are.
They will grow them, and then they will sweat them off because they'll be like, this is a manly sweatshirt. I have balls now, but I'm hot. Boom, they just fell off.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, they dude, they're so awesome.
Yep.
And they're comfortable. I'm
Yeah,
like,
they
there's
are.
not, dude, I can't say enough about them. Kenders,
Right.
I don't know where you went and figured
Got
these
this-
things
yeah,
out, but these
but-
things are amazing, dude.
Yep. Life changers.
Can you please make me a snow goose one that's not red lined inside though, all white? Appreciate it. Thanks.
I know
That'd
because
be
I got
awesome.
one that got the red
I
liner.
know. I have a white one, but it's
Yep.
red inside. I'm like, this is kind of counterintuitive to staying hidden in a white thread. So
Spray
if you
paint.
make me one with white inside and white outside, even black inside,
Yep.
totally cool with that. But white, black, not red.
Well,
Right.
you got a
Let's do
rattle
it.
can. Paint it up.
It'll be fine.
Say it with
I
Krylon.
am excited though, out of all the lakes, to go hit Pokegama. I know there's a lot of guys in our tournament
We're
series.
not fishing it this year.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Clearwater.
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 Yes.
I
So
am super
I'm nervous
excited.
about that one.
Everybody should be nervous about that lake because that is a complete juggernaut of a lake.
Goddamn
I have fished
basin
it.
crappies out
Yep,
there.
I have pre-fished it before. I have found good fish on it, but if you can get onto the school of 13 to 15 and a half, 16-inch crop,
Toads in there.
there's no. So it's 7. It's what 7 and 7 plus one of each species. I have seen 10, 11, 12-pound bags of
Yeah, so if
15
you get-
fish.
If you get a full limit, what's called full limit, so you get 7 crappies,
Yep.
7 sunfish, which is bluegill or pumpkin seeds
Yep.
or hybrids.
Yep.
You get a bonus fish of
One or the other.
one or the other.
Yep.
Generally, if you can, you're going to fill that with a crappie because generally crappies are bigger than bluegill.
Yep.
Generally, depending on the lake. So yeah, in a perfect world, you're weighing 8 crappies, 7 sunfish,
Right.
and there are some
Toads.
odes. in that lake.
I've seen 2-pound crappies pulled out on tournament days on that lake, and I've seen 10, 11, 12-pound
Okay,
bags.
can we just fantasize? Can we just fantasize for just a little bit? Just indulge me, just a little bit. Let's say you get your full limit. You have 8 crappies,
Yep.
all 2-pounders.
Okay.
That's 16 pounds. All right, just
not
stay
even
with me. Stay with me.
I'm trying.
I won't go as absurd as say 1-pound bluegills, but let's say 3/4 pound.
Okay.
That's
Those are
a-
9 and a
that's a
half,
stud,
nine
Right?
and a half
That's a
heavy,
stud.
heavy
That's a
gills.
stud gill. So
Yep.
now what are we looking at? We're looking at 1.5 pounds for every 2 fish. So that's 3 pounds, 4.5 pounds,
5 1/4?
5 1/4 added to your
16.
16.
20-pound bag.
You have a
21 and a half
Yeah,
pound bag.
21
and a half pound bag of panfish. That's a great bass bag. All right, can we just be honest here? Granted,
Yeah.
it's more fish, but it doesn't
Right.
matter. Dude, what if that happened?
You know,
Hang it up, retire your poles. That
Right.
shit's never happening again.
I think the record, I think the UPL, I could
Dude.
be wrong with this, but I believe the UPL has a record, and I think the best weight ever pulled off that lake was like a 12.9. So in my mind,
That's a great bag,
Right,
though, dude. I
and-
mean, I know I was
and the-
talking fantastically about a 20-pound bag,
and the
but 12,
and the story
Dude.
of that bag too is even better because the guy did not do any pre-fishing except for the last hour and a half of light the night before. He went out, found fish, said, "This is where I'm going to go." Came out there the next morning,
They were
was
still there?
pulling
Oh, you got lucky.
pulling 13s out, hand over fist, freaking pinwheeling. fish. Caught his
That's
whole
what
entire
killed us
bag.
on Pokegama last year.
Yeah.
Pre-fishing day before. Found plenty of good crappies.
Yep.
I brushed crappies off like, oh, we're going to get our crappies. I'm not even worried about that. I found a morning bluegill spot that had really good gills.
Yep.
And I do still think we had the best gill bag the day.
You did.
As we got there, and it wasn't as good as it was the day before, but we still got like 4 or 5 real like solid stud gills.
Mm-hmm.
And then we filled out our bag, and then we went to go find our crappies, which are supposed to be fucking easy, but we couldn't buy a 12-inch crappie.
Nope.
If we'd had even one 12-inch crappie, we had a chance at first. If we'd have caught 2 12-inch crappies, we would have smashed.
I remember that day because Joel looked. I remember Joel coming up to me and he's like, "How'd you guys do?" I'm like, "We got 2 awesome kicker fish." I said, "We have a decent rest of the bag." I said, "I think we're going to be in the top 10." And he looked at it, he's like, I wish I could buy those fish off you because I looked at your guys' bluegills. I was like, wow. Like, you guys for sure have a better, like, just general fish way. But we had the 2 kicker fish. It was just like.
And it was a strategy thing because obviously early, first thing in the morning, generally you're going to target your crappies. Because you're going to get your better crappies. They're going to be schooled up tighter first thing in the morning. But pre-fishing, I found this spot in relatively shallow water where these bigger bluegills were. Bigger than I found anywhere else in the lake consistently. So it's like, and I found them right away in the morning. So I'm like, this might only be a morning bite.
Right.
And because I thought that we could get crappies. I mean, generally good crappies in that lake are not hard to come by. So I did kind of shelf them a little bit. And I'm like, listen, if we can get better than average crappies, it's going to put us ahead of the race. Let's go fill our crappie bag, and we're going to be sitting pretty. Great on paper. Didn't work that day in application.
I've been burned on that before, going after good gills before crappies, and it's never turned out good. So at this point, I'm going for the biggest crappies in the morning, and then I'm going to chip away at bluegills and kicker fish for the rest of the day.
Well, but the thing is, with that said, though, I still kind of stick by my strategy because that bite did taper off drastically after the first hour.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, we need to bail on this spot and go. So it was an early morning big gill spot. So it was a risk.
And on some lakes.
I mean, we still finished in the top 10, but I mean, we had a legit shot at first.
You did.
I mean, to come into that league, brand new, first event, to take first place, damn it, that would have been sweet.
There is some good sticks in
those
that league.
Goddamn kids.
I
we
know.
need to start slashing tires or something. This is bullshit.
I know. And you know what the thing of it is that as they continue to win, the pressure is going to be more and more.
Yeah,
and it's
for
like,
sure.
and it's like, they're good. You know, they're good guys.
I got to get them on the podcast.
You do,
too.
yeah. Because you know that the thing that works.
I like to drink beer though. They're like not even.
Well,
19,
that's the best part is that they won the cooler full of beer, and I think one of them couldn't even. Like,
Team of the year.
Yeah, they couldn't drink the beer. They couldn't drink it.
Yeah, our sponsor, Insight Brewery.
Yep, they couldn't drink it.
Donated a bunch of beer, and the winners of Team of the Year couldn't even
drink it.
Enjoy their prize.
So they got the cooler. No beer. They got the cooler.
Oh, you got to go to work, Jason. Oh, you're already late.
Whatever.
You're fucked now.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I'll just call in an hour.
You know, that's what happens. It's a goddamn time warp in this podcast.
It sure does.
What are you going to do?
Speaking of fishing, if we can get some weather and I can get some time away, we might need to go down to the St. Croix. I have a spot that could be good.
Well, it's about 7 feet above flood stage right now.
Perfect.
I know, depending on how it is, but
it's going to have to drop down a lot. Because I generally like fall fishing on the St. Croix. Like right now, the colors are starting to change.
Yep.
Dude, the shad run, it's like a river of shad, and smallmouth are just strapping on the feed.
I'm talking north of Taylor's Falls.
Oh, okay. I know a couple spots up that way, too. Yep. That could be fun. Well,
when I was there, the last time I was there in the fall, it was down 15 feet. They did the drawdown to work on the dam. And I was out there on a crankbait bite, and we put over 100 smallies in the boat.
That's even better yet. Low water on a river is always better than high water because it concentrates them in the holes.
It was nuts.
Competition is good for business. Right. Because I remember one of the best times I had on the Snake River here in Minnesota was we had a drought year, 91-ish, somewhere 91, 92, 93, somewhere in that range. I don't remember exactly.
I was learning the alphabet.
Me too.
Shut up.
Old man.
I know.
91.
Anyways,
I was
the
2.
river was very low, extremely low. My old man and I, we floated it this stretch, and most of the river was damn near unfishable. But then you would get to the deeper holes, and the fish were stacked like cordwood in there.
You could throw a
And-
net down in there and catch them.
So, I mean, the thing is, like, it didn't matter what you're using because at that point, competition for food was so intense that you probably could have actually caught them on a bare hook. Like, they just were smashing everything. I mean, we caught smallmouth, we caught jumbo perch. I mean, that's not even a river you expect to even find perch in. We were
Right.
catching giant perch, northerns everywhere, walleyes, white bass. Like, it was just retarded. It was like, but you only get that in a drought year because
Yeah.
they're just so concentrated in the holes because the rest of the river's less than a foot deep.
It's a
it's
sand
a riffle.
basin.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean, it's just
sand,
ridiculous, but yeah, tons of fun.
Not this year.
We need to pour into this map. We need to come up with a plan.
Yep.
Find a week because I mean, fall is just a tough time.
There's so much.
So much going on.
So much
Well,
to
fall
do.
fishing is great.
Right.
Hunting is waterfowling.
Birds, deer.
Deer hunting.
ducks,
Trapping's going to start at the end of this
Right,
month. Jesus Christ.
I'm all about the deer this time of year. I'm so addicted
But
to deer
I am
hunting, it's not
super
even
excited
funny.
about the spot that I showed you because it's been rattling around my brain literally for 20 years.
Let's
Well,
get
let's
let's
go
get
in there.
Dale a Hardhorn.
We
That's
need
our
it.
goal.
Yeah.
Let's
go
get
in there,
Dale a Hardhorn.
smash a couple bucks out of there, and we'll come back and do a recap
Yeah.
podcast.
Perfect. I love it. So if
There's
people
gotta be
wanna
a booner
find-
out there.
Follow you guys on social media. Give everybody your social media.
I'm on Facebook part time. That's about it.
Yeah.
Part time.
Right.
Kevin Wildung.
Yep.
You didn't even give your name.
No.
You're not on the Insta.
You know, I don't care. I just
Okay,
want to go. You know what
whatever.
I mean?
I'm not guilting you. I'm just
no.
asking.
No, I'm honestly, I'm like social media. It's kind of a turnoff for me. If you want to hit me up on social media, I will
Do you have
reply.
a Snapchat?
Nope, not anymore. I
was
just
gonna say
don't got
send all
Snapchat
your
either.
titty
Yep.
pictures to Kevin Wildung.
no. I'm pleasantly happy in that department, so I
Yeah.
can't complain. But no, yeah, I'm pretty low key. I don't. If you run into me at the grocery store, you want to talk about deer hunting, I'm more than willing to spill my brains out. Doesn't matter, but yeah, find me on Facebook. If you want help, whether it comes to fishing, hunting, I'm pretty good to average at just about everything. You know?
Pretty good to average at
So
just about everything.
and I hope I always keep that mentality.
Maybe a little less in the bedroom.
Right.
So I've heard.
I got references.
A short list, but
Right,
they're
yeah.
references.
It's a good list. That's all that matters.
Definitely a short list.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity.
Is
Right?
that-
Right.
Yep. Yeah, that was funny because I remember when we were walking out, I said, "Boy, you sure turned into a decent hunter." It goes, "Well, I have you to thank for that." I
Right.
said, "Yeah, the mentor program worked out pretty
Right,
good." for
exactly.
you."
Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah, so if someone's looking for a mentor program, because I started at, 22, 23 years old, I started figuring all this out.
Adult onset hunting.
Yep.
That's me.
Yep.
For sure.
It's never too late to learn.
No,
It was
no.
well. See, the thing is I think that what helps me, it actually helped me in the long run, is teaching you and never showing you the easy way of doing things.
Right.
It's
Go
always
there,
been a
find
grind.
it.
Do it the hard
We
way.
go to
Yeah.
South
Yeah.
Dakota. How many we used to call them the Trail of Tears walks.
Right.
Where we would go and walk miles and see nothing and go back, and it would suck, but
It's
is what we
intel.
did.
It's
Yeah.
intel.
Yeah.
It's knowledge. One way
That's
or
the
another.
thing. I was going to bring this up earlier, but it's just a quick point. You always learn more. I mean, this is across the board. I don't
doesn't-
care what
yep.
aspect of life. You learn more in failure than you ever will in success.
Right.
Because success can come with just dumb luck.
Yep.
Literally can come in with dumb luck. You don't learn a
Right.
goddamn thing. And you could have a record book fish or a record book buck or whatever the hell it is. Your failures, if you have the presence of mind to
you have to embrace the
reflect
failure.
on that failure and
Yep.
why did I fail?
Right.
That's where you learn.
I did.
Those are the learning moments.
Yep.
For sure. A success is not a learning moment. Success is just,
Accumulation of it all.
Yep.
but it can be luck though. That's my point.
Yep.
It's like you might, sure, sometimes there are things to learn as success, but it's far more common to learn from failures than it ever will be to learn from success.
I didn't shoot my first buck with a bow until 5 years into archery hunting. I didn't shoot my first Pope and Young until 6 years in. Think about that.
Yeah, well,
and I embraced.
I haven't shot a hard.
And I haven't. So. And that's the thing is that I have embraced every part of that, and I have always continued to get better. And it doesn't matter if it's a Pope and Young or if it's a little 100-inch 8-pointer I shoot on public ground. It's always.
I kind of feel like I have a slight curse hanging over my head just a little bit, kind of like Twins and Yankees kind of a thing.
Oh, Jesus!
Because I know it's a sore spot in Minnesota right now because we have the home run record. The Yankees are like second in home run records by literally like one home run, right, in the regular season, and we get swept in the goddamn playoffs. It's just fucking bullshit. But anyways, so Jason, give them your credentials.
Jason Kushlin. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I post once every few months. Honestly, I don't post a whole lot.
And what's the other cat you mentioning? What's his name again?
Dan Infante.
Oh, Dan Infault.
Infault?
Dan Infault and the Hunting Beast
spelled?
Forum. INFALT.
Infault. Okay.
And
INFALT.
the Hunting Beast Forum. There's a Hunting Beast Forum members page. Also, but there is unbelievable amount of information that gets shared there.
Cool.
And people ask questions all the time, and there's more than enough people on there that are willing to help and give information.
That's awesome. That's great.
But there's an actual forum, and then they have the page on their Facebook as well.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming out and bailing me out.
Well, I appreciate you having us on.
Yeah.
It was fun
Hey,
talking.
we like talking about this
stuff.
stuff.
Worth, you guys are the first people I reached out to. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We're the first backup.
Right.
It helped.
Yeah.
I mean, my memory's not that great, but it helped that I saw your story. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to get them on eventually because I want to hear that story of this public land island hunt.
Right.
And then I had this one fall through, and I'm like,
boom.
I got to send these.
Right.
I got to send these fuckers a message right
Literally
away.
2 days ago, we killed that deer.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's real fresh.
awesome.
fresh.
That's
That's fresh.
sweet. You having a process? You do it yourself? What do you do?
Doing him. I got him quartered up. So that was rough because I shot him Sunday night. Our story, I shot him at 7 o'clock. We got all of the deer, all of our stuff back to the trucks in the Access parking lot at 10:30. By the time I got home,
it was like 11:30.
Yeah, it was like 11:30. By the
It was
time
like 4.5 hours it
yeah.
took to get out.
Yep.
Oh.
So by the time I got home, I work construction. I got to be on the job by 7 o'clock, or otherwise my ass is grass.
Yeah.
So I go to work a 9-hour shift, come home, and I quartered him up in the garage last night.
Nice.
And so then I worked a 10-hour day.
Now
And
you
I'm here
got to
talking.
bone it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until I'm done hunting because that deboning process is a couple
Shanks, dude.
Shanks.
Don't debone the shanks. Just cut it off at the knee.
Yep. I learned that.
Dude,
I think from listening.
Dude, I am telling you, I cannot emphasize this enough. Braise them bitches. Just Google braised venison shanks. You'll find a whole list. I don't care what recipe you use. Life changing. I'm not exaggerating. I did it last year for the first time, and it changed the way I look at a throwaway cut. I mean, what most people consider a throwaway cut. All that connective tissue, all those tendons that you usually curse and cuss because they're a pain in the dick. And
they suck cutting up.
They clog up your grinder. They do this, they do that, whatever. All that stuff melts, goes into the meat, makes the best base for gravy. The meat is so stupid tender, and it's so good. So I've started now keeping my thighs and legs from my geese that I shoot, which, yes, does it extend my cleaning time?
Yes.
Exponentially.
Yes, it does.
It doubles it at least. But it is worth it. I made it last week. My wife, who is really starting to come around to wild game, but when I first met, not into wild game at all.
Right.
But admittedly so, because I wasn't the greatest cook of it. But now I've learned how to cook it. So I took these goose legs and thighs, and I basically did this. I braised them, browned them on all sides, threw them in some juice, slow cooked them for hours until they fall off the bone. It probably was as good, honestly, as the venison shanks. Same thing. The gravy is so rich that you make from the drippings and everything else. The meat is so tender and just, oh my God. If you're not doing this, you are missing out. I'm telling you, it is worth all the extra effort.
I want to try it with turkey
at the
legs.
time, dude. They would be amazing. I promise you. I haven't had them, but I promise you they'll be amazing.
Yeah, I smoked
because
mine
all that
last year.
stuff that you think is tough, all that connective tissue, those tendons, the stuff that just are the bane of your existence.
Right when you're chopping a deer up, yeah, because that sucks.
Melt into the best food you can think of. Honestly, it will change the way you view those cuts.
I'm gonna try it.
I heard you say this once before, and when I was chopping that deer up, I'm like, this is going to be so much more easier now because I'm just pretty much going to lop this and this off. Done. I'm done. Packaged.
In reality, it's easier.
There's
if you think about it, it's easier.
done.
Yeah, at the moment of cooking, it's longer.
Right.
But it's waiting.
Yep.
Like, you're not actively working for 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
It's in the oven.
Yep.
Forget about it.
Throw it in,
Set
go
it,
to work.
forget it.
Yeah.
George Foreman had it. I mean, he knows what he's talking about, right?
I loved using my pellet grill because I can throw shit on there and that thing just
I need to
freaking.
get one of those
Do
because
it.
steady
Yes.
temperature, that's the key. So one thing I'm going to try this year, we're going to go to North Dakota here in a couple weeks.
I was told about that. Good luck with the snow.
Yeah, so, well, whatever. That should only help us. But anyways, I want to bring the cattle, the cast iron cattle out, and might just use a turkey fryer on low setting, but I want to get some goose legs and thighs in that cast iron kettle cooking all day while we're out actively hunting. So when we come back, they're ready to rock and roll. And just strip that meat off the bones, drain that sauce, whip up a little gravy. Dude, I guarantee you they'll be the best meal these cats have ever had in the field ever, with little to no work, really.
Right.
I mean, because it's cooking while you're out there actively hunting. Like, what could be possibly better than that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I'm telling you. I can't wait. So when we do this hunt that we wanted, which we got to figure out a time.
Yep.
We'll schedule it, and let's just get on the books and let's do it, and then we can do a follow-up podcast, and then hopefully in that time, you have had those shanks, and if you haven't, then I'm gonna fucking make it at my house, and you guys are invited to come over, and we'll just do it here.
Perfect.
Deal.
I like eating.
You guys are gonna lose your minds, dude. It
I'm gonna have to go home.
Transcends any wild game you've ever had.
I'm gonna have to go home and start throwing those in the crock pot because I have the whole legs. I have the whole.
Don't crock pot. Bake it, dude.
Bake it.
Bake it. Brown them.
Bake it.
Brown them first. Get that char that gives that good meat char.
Yep.
And then throw them in
Fired
the
up on my sear box on my grill.
Right,
throw 'em in the
700
oven.
degrees. Freaking, that's
Throw
hot.
them in the oven for like 300. Just
Yeah.
Just let them do the thing.
Let 'em.
Just forget about it.
You could probably do the same
'cause
thing
you
in a
can't
pellet
actually-
grill, though.
Because it's almost counterintuitive to wild game. Generally, in wild game, I will tell people do not overcook this meat.
Right.
If you overcook wild
It's
game,
gonna
it's going
taste
to be
like
terrible.
jerky. Yeah.
This is the complete opposite. You almost cannot overcook it because the longer it sits in that low temp,
Yep.
the more that meat breaks down.
Right.
The more those tendons break down.
Well,
The
it's just
more,
like doing
the
pulled
more
pork.
that connective tissue melts. Like when you do it slow and low, you can't really overcook it.
Right.
You know, you might if it's not covered tight and lose some of moisture, but then all really you have to do is add more. Just throw some more water in there, or beef stock or something back in there, and then you're going to be good to go. But if you have a good enough cover on it, that's not going to happen. So it's just
I should
patience,
try doing
man.
I should do it in my pellet smoker.
Oh, your house smells so good. The whole house smells so good when that cooks for hours, dude. It's like when you have chili on a pot. Like, doesn't your house just smell amazing, right? Because that thing's just stewing all day.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's
I'm
awesome.
so
Some
hungry
garlic,
right
some
now.
onion, beef shanks. Oh, God damn, I got to shoot.
I'm excited for you to show me that map because I want to know if
I
it's
know.
in an area that I've already begun scouting because there is a couple areas that are I think
I would
close
be-
to where you are
Okay.
that I've begun doing
I'd
a little
be
bit of
kinda
eyeballing.
surprised if you are. But
Don't
Maybe not.
Don't be.
Hey,
Don't
if
be.
you look
Well,
at
I
my
mean, if you-
Onyx,
if
there's
you-
like
yeah,
thousands
no, I mean,
of
if you've
pins.
just been like satellite scouting, I wouldn't be too surprised. But man, I haven't seen anybody. I seen a
I know I
physical
haven't been
person
out
back
there,
in
but
there.
possibly map scouting.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's shut this thing down and let's do it. All right, thanks, fellas.
Thanks.
Later.
Thank you.
Later.